The air was thick with the salt of the ocean as Arya stood at the edge of the cliff, gazing at the horizon. Tomorrow, she would turn 16, the day every woman in her family transforms into a mermaid. But Arya wasn't like the others. She wasn't ready to give herself to the sea. She had heard the stories, the whispers in the night, the ocean's demand for a blood price, the curse that bound her family's fate to its waters. The price? A life, always one of Omi's daughters. But what if there was another way? What if Arya could escape the sea's grasp? What if she could defy the ocean and keep her life, her future, her love? What happened next would shatter everything. Because in refusing her fate, Arya would awaken something far darker than she had ever imagined. The sea, an ancient force that had whispered through the generations, was watching, and it had been waiting for someone like her to challenge it. When she tried to break free, the ocean did not retreat, it rose in fury. Now, the same sea that gave her family life and power would demand its payment. And Arya would soon learn that some forces, ancient, powerful, and relentless, cannot be outrun. Before we dive deeper into this epic tale, we'd love to know where you are watching from. Tell us in the comments. And if you love high-stakes fantasy filled with mermaids, magic, love, and sacrifice, don't just watch, be part of our adventure. Like this video, share it with someone who loves powerful stories, and hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow, we've got an extra special story lined up for you, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. The moon hung low and heavy over the village of Amalana, casting silver light across the great river Omi. The water shimmered like liquid glass, calm on the surface, but beneath, something moved. Something old. Something watching. Arya stood barefoot on the wet stones at the river's edge, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The night breeze whispered through the palm trees, and the scent of salt and damp earth wrapped around her. She shivered, not from the cold, but from fear. Tomorrow, she would turn 16. And every girl in the house of Omi, her mother's line, her grandmother's line, stretching back hundreds of years, became a mermaid on her 16th birthday. They called it the blessing. But Arya didn't want it. She didn't want webbed fingers or silver eyes. She didn't want to sleep under the sea or speak the ancient fish tongue. She wanted to stay on land. She wanted her life to be hers. She wanted Prince Kibu. Arya, a voice called softly from the trees. She turned quickly, her long black braids swinging around her shoulders. It was Naya, her younger sister, still only 10, peeking out from behind a banana tree. "You shouldn't be out here," Naya whispered. "Mama said the river is listening tonight." "I know," Arya whispered back, "that's why I came." She knelt and touched the surface of the water. It was warm. Too warm. The river always grew hotter before a girl's change. A bubble rose from beneath the water, then another, until a strange glowing hand reached up, barely visible in the moonlight, and brushed her fingers. Arya jumped back. Naya gasped. "The spirits. They've come for you." "No," Arya said, stepping away from the water. "Not yet. I still have one night left." The wind howled suddenly. The trees swayed. Far across the river, a drumbeat echoed, soft and slow, like a heartbeat from the deep. The Omi people said the sea had a heart. And tonight, it was awake. Later, in the safety of their thatched home, Arya sat by the fire. Her mother, Yamoja, stirred a pot of pepper soup, humming a song in the ancient tongue. Naya lay curled on a mat, clutching a carved wooden doll. "You went to the river," Yamoja said without turning. Arya froze. "How do you know?" "I felt it," Yamoja said simply. "The water told me." Of course it did. Her mother had been a powerful mermaid once. They said when Yamoja dove into the sea for the last time, even the whales rose to greet her. But she had returned. She gave up the ocean life when Arya was born. She chose land. That gave Arya hope. "Mama," Arya said carefully, "what if I don't want to change?" Yamoja turned to look at her, her face full of shadows from the firelight. "You don't have a choice, my child," she said softly. "When the sea calls your name, you must answer." "But what if I don't?" Arya insisted. What if I run far away? What if I stay hidden until it's too late? Yemoja sighed. The sea will find you. And if you hide, it will take someone else instead. Arya blinked. What do you mean? But Yemoja said no more. She returned to stirring the soup, her humming soft and sad. That night, Arya couldn't sleep. The wind howled louder. Outside, the river roared like a lion, crashing against its own banks. She sat up in bed, sweating. Her legs itched. She threw off her wrapper and stared. Her skin glowed faintly blue. A strange pattern shimmered down her legs, like fish scales forming beneath her flesh. No, she whispered. She ran to her grandmother's old chest and opened it. Inside were combs, beads, and a worn piece of cloth. Beneath the cloth was something wrapped in banana leaves. Her hands trembled as she opened it. A carved wooden comb lay inside. It was old, older than any story she had heard. Etched along the side were tiny symbols. The marks of her people. She traced them with her fingers. Suddenly the room spun. A wave of sound filled her ears, not with noise, but with voices. One must always be given, to keep the waters still, to feed the sea. She gasped. It was true. The sea didn't just take girls out of kindness. It demanded them. One girl, every generation, had to die to keep the others alive. Arya clutched the comb and ran to her mother's room. Mama, she cried. Yemoja sat up instantly. What is it? The comb, Arya panted. It spoke to me. It said, one must be sacrificed. Is it true? Yemoja's eyes filled with tears. Who told you? You just did, Arya whispered. There was silence. Only the river outside, still roaring. The spirits were angry. I was the one, Yemoja said at last. I was supposed to die. Arya's heart dropped. But your grandmother, Yemoja continued, she chose someone else instead. Her younger sister, Imani. You mean? Great Aunt Imani? But you said she drowned. She did, Yemoja said. So the sea would be calm. So I could live. So you could live. Arya's breath caught. And now, Yemoja said softly, it is your turn. But Arya wasn't ready to die. Not for a curse. Not for a past she didn't choose. And not when her heart belonged to Prince Kibu. He was the prince of neighboring Ijuro, a golden boy with storm-colored eyes and a smile that made the river spirits blush. He had visited Amalana many times, always drawn to the water's edge. They said he heard voices from the sea, but no one believed it. Except Arya. Because she heard them too. But Kibu was engaged. Betrothed to Lady Mariah, a noblewoman from the east, tall and cold like the mountains where she was raised. She smiled with her lips but never her eyes. And she had a secret. Arya had seen it once, just a flash. When Mariah thought no one was looking, her reflection in the water shifted. Her shadow grew long, her eyes glowed red. She wasn't just a noblewoman. She was part of the Sea Witches, an old coven banished long ago after trying to curse the house of Omi. And now she was back. And marrying Kibu. Why? What did she want? And what was Kibu hiding? The answers were in the water. In the voices. In the comb. Arya clutched it tightly. She would not be the sacrifice. Not yet. The morning sun peeked over the horizon like a shy child. But Amalana didn't sing like it used to. The birds were quiet. The palm trees didn't dance. And the river Omi, that ancient and mighty lifeline, whispered low and restless. It had not slept through the night. Arya had not slept either. She stood by the window of their hut, clutching the carved comb with both hands. Her mother's words haunted her. One must always be given, to keep the waters still. She watched the villagers begin their day, women with water pots on their heads, old men pounding yam beneath mango trees, children running barefoot with laughter in their throats. Life went on, as though the river wasn't watching. As though the sea didn't demand a soul. And tonight, it could be hers. Are you going to the market? Naya's small voice chirped behind her. Arya turned to find her little sister tugging at her wrapper, eyes bright and hopeful. Can we get chin-chin today? The kind with sugar crystals. Arya managed a smile. Only if you help Mama first. Naya's grin widened. I will. I promise. Arya stroked her sister's hair gently. So innocent. So full of life. She wondered if her mother had looked at her the same way, 16 years ago, on the night before her own transformation. Where are you going? Naya asked, following her to the doorway. To find answers, Arya replied, slipping the comb into the small woven pouch around her waist. And then she was gone. The palace of Ijuro stood tall like a lion on the hill, its red clay walls rising high over the land, decorated with ivory carvings and golden fishtail banners that flapped in the breeze. It was a place of both power and legend. Prince Kibu had always found comfort in its garden, the sacred grove at the back of the palace, where the river bent and whispered through smooth stones and ancient fig trees. It was there that Arya found him. He was seated on a rock, bare-chested, his dark skin glowing in the morning light. He was carving something from a piece of driftwood, his brow furrowed in deep thought. When she approached, he didn't look up. "You're not supposed to be here," he said quietly, still working the wood. "I know," Arya said. "But I had to see you." Kibu paused, then looked at her. His eyes, those strange sea-colored eyes, seemed brighter than ever. "It's today, isn't it?" She nodded. "My 16th birthday." He exhaled slowly. "I've been dreaming about the sea again. Last night, I heard it calling your name." Arya stepped closer. "Then you know what's coming." "I know what they say is coming," Kibu said, setting down his carving. "But I don't believe the sea takes without reason." "I used to think the same," she whispered. "Until last night." He raised an eyebrow. Arya took out the comb and placed it in his hands. Kibu's expression changed. He turned it over, ran his thumb across the etchings. "This is old. Omi made. Riverwood. It belonged to my grandmother," she said. "And it carries memories. Voices." Kibu's hands trembled slightly. "What did it show you?" "That one girl must die. Always. Every generation. It's how the balance is kept." He stared at her. "But why you?" "Because I'm next in line." "No," Kibu stood now, his voice growing stronger. "You can't accept this. There must be another way." Arya met his gaze. "I thought you'd say that. But there's more." She hesitated, then said carefully, "Lady Mariah. She's not who she says she is." Kibu tensed. "What are you talking about?" "I saw her reflection once." It shifted. Her eyes glowed red. "She isn't just noble-born. She's part of the sea witches." He laughed, but it was hollow. "You sound like the village griot." "I'm serious." Arya snapped. "You're betrothed. She comes from the same coven that cursed my family. The same ones my ancestors fought to protect the river." Kibu looked away, conflicted. "She saved my life once. When I fell into the ocean as a child. She pulled me from the deep." "Or she marked you," Arya said. "You've heard the sea since you were little. That's not normal." He didn't deny it. "You think I'm part sea," he whispered. She took his hand. "I think you're more than you know. Just like me." That night, the village of Amalana gathered by the riverbank. Fires burned bright. Drums echoed across the water. The air smelled of roasted fish, palm wine, and something darker, fear. It was the night of the calling. All the daughters who had turned 16 that year knelt in a circle, their bodies wrapped in white cloth, their hair adorned with shells. Arya was among them, but her heart beat louder than any drum. She had made a decision. She would not go into the water. A high priestess stood by the edge, holding a silver staff. Her voice boomed across the crowd. Tonight, the sea accepts her children. Let those who are ready, rise. One by one, the girls stood. Their skin shimmered faintly. Their legs had begun to change. The water danced behind them. Umoja stepped forward. Her face was stern, but her eyes begged. Arya, please. But Arya didn't move. I won't go, she said. Gasps echoed. The drums stopped. Even the river seemed to freeze. What did you say? The high priestess asked. I said I won't go. Arya shouted, stepping out of the circle. The sea is not my master. And I will not be its offering. Suddenly the ground shook. Waves surged from the river, crashing into the bank. People screamed. The fire went out. A terrible voice filled the air. You break the pact. The water rose like a wall. From it stepped a figure, tall, wrapped in seaweed and smoke. Its face was hidden, but its eyes glowed like fireflies in the dark. The sea has waited, the voice boomed. And it shall not wait again. Then the water figure pointed. Another must be given. Arya turned. Naya stood at the edge of the crowd, her small face pale with terror. No. Arya screamed, running toward her. But it was too late. The river reached out with a hand of water and pulled. Naya vanished. The crowd screamed. Mothers clutched their children. Fathers raised torches to the sky, shouting in confusion. But Arya didn't hear any of them. She was already in the river. She dived with all her strength, tearing into the water where Naya had vanished. The current whipped her around like a rag doll, and the river's arms, cold and cruel, fought her every stroke. She opened her eyes underwater, but everything was murky and silver blue, with shadows dancing just out of reach. Naya, she screamed through bubbles. The comb around her waist glowed faintly. Her body responded, not with fear, but with something deeper. Ancient. As though her blood recognized this moment. Her legs tingled. Scales shimmered along her thighs. Her toes fused together for a heartbeat, then split apart again. But she was too late. Naya was gone. Arya burst back to the surface, choking, sobbing, gasping for air. Her hair stuck to her face like seaweed. She crawled onto the shore and collapsed, her fingers digging into the muddy earth. My sister, she whispered, her voice broken. Umoja knelt beside her. The priestess's face was wet, not just from the river. She was taken as a replacement, Umoja said softly. Because you refused the call. No. Arya sobbed. I was going to find another way. I wasn't going to let anyone die. But the river had already decided. The sky above darkened, although it wasn't yet night. Thunder rumbled softly, like a mother weeping. The people of Amalana began to back away, frightened by the storm. They had seen the sea angry before, but never like this. Prince Kibu arrived moments later, his clothes soaked, his eyes wide. What happened? He demanded. Arya couldn't answer. She could only shake her head, hugging herself like a child. Kibu helped her up. The crowd stared, whispering. She defied the sea. She's cursed. She is the cause of the storm. Enough. Kibu barked. She is a daughter of Omi. Show respect. Arya whispered, I need to get her back. Kibu turned to her. You want to go into the deep? Arya looked up at him with blazing eyes. Yes. I will go where no Omi woman has ever gone. I will go into the underwaters. Umoja gasped. Child, no. That path is forbidden. It leads to the Trench of Tears, where the drowned sleep. Not even mermaids return from there. Arya stood. Then I will be the first. That night, the village remained silent. No one celebrated. The fires were not lit. The waters lay still, but it was the stillness of a blade before it strikes. Arya sat alone in her family hut. Her mother hadn't returned from the river. She was likely with the elders, speaking of what punishment would follow. But Arya had already made up her mind. She unwrapped her grandmother's comb again. The carvings glowed brighter in the dim light. She placed it under her tongue and closed her eyes. The dream came instantly. She was standing beneath the riverbed, where sunlight barely reached. Statues of forgotten mermaids stood in a ring around her, each weeping salt tears into bowls of coral. Then one statue moved. It was her grandmother. "My child," the spirit said, her voice like waves crashing softly on sand. "You knew," Arya whispered. "You knew someone had to die." The grandmother nodded. "It is the law of balance. For every Omi daughter who receives the gift of water, one must give herself willingly to the sea gate. That has been our vow for 10 generations. But why us?" Arya demanded. "Why only the girls of Omi?" "Because we are the river's daughters," the spirit said. "We are its magic. Its bridges to the world of men. And power always has a price." "I won't let Naya pay it," Arya said fiercely. "I'll find her. I'll break the vow if I must." The spirit frowned. "Be warned, child. If you go where the drowned sleep, you must take with you something the sea fears." Arya's eyes widened. "What does the sea fear?" But the dream vanished. Arya awoke at dawn with a single word in her head. Fire. She left the hut quietly. In her pouch, she packed 3 things: her grandmother's comb, a piece of burning charcoal wrapped in plantain leaves, and a small gourd of oil mixed with crushed fire pepper. When she reached the river again, Yamoja was already there. "I knew you'd come," the priestess said without turning. "I'm going to the underwaters," Arya said. Yamoja turned to her now. "Then I must give you this." From the folds of her wrapper, Yamoja brought out a necklace made of cowrie shells and lion teeth. She tied it around Arya's neck. "This belonged to your mother's mother. It is protection against sea witches." Arya touched the necklace gently. "Thank you. But listen," Yamoja warned. "There is something else you must know. Lady Mariah, she is already down there. She went ahead of you, with her sisters." Arya's heart dropped. "Why?" "They know you've broken the pact. They will try to kill the drowned girl before you can reach her. If her blood touches the sea gate, the balance will seal forever, and no daughter will ever return from the river again." Arya clenched her fists. "Then I'll stop them." Without another word, she stepped into the river. As soon as the water reached her waist, it began to shimmer. Her body responded. Her skin turned silver along her arms. Fins pushed from the back of her legs. Gills fluttered beneath her ears. The water pulled her down, gently this time. She was ready. Down, down, down she went. Past the roots of the fig trees. Past the bones of drowned fishermen. Past the coral gardens where glowing fish whispered old songs. She swam through tunnels of sea glass and under arches of whalebone. Until she saw the gate. It was made of stone, wrapped in chains of pearl and guarded by 2 giant stingrays with eyes like moons. Arya placed the fire pepper oil on her tongue. The stingrays moved aside. The sea gate opened. And beyond it lay the Trench of Tears. The Trench of Tears was a place lost to time, forgotten by the world above. Arya could feel its weight as she swam deeper, her heart beating like a drum in her chest. The water became thick with sorrow, each wave swirling with the sadness of countless souls. It was a place where the living should never tread, and yet, here she was. Her silver skin glimmered in the dim light that filtered down from the sea's surface. She had never swum this deep before, where the light barely touched, and the water seemed to hum with an ancient magic. The trench stretched out before her, a massive chasm that yawned like the mouth of a great beast. Its walls were lined with old, worn statues of sea gods, some familiar, others long forgotten by humans. Arya swam through a labyrinth of crumbled temples and sunken ships, the sound of the ocean's endless whisper growing louder with every stroke. And then, she saw them. A group of figures, their bodies wrapped in dark seaweed, floated silently in the water ahead. Their faces were pale, eyes glowing with a faint blue light. They moved with unnatural grace, their long, tangled hair drifting like vines in the current. The Sea Witches. Arya's heart skipped a beat. Lady Mariah was among them, her tall, regal form illuminated by the glow of the deep-sea creatures that surrounded her. But it wasn't just Lady Mariah. Arya recognized the other women, each one a member of the Witch Coven. They were all part of the same dark lineage that had once tried to destroy her family. Mariah's eyes caught Arya's, and for a moment, there was a flicker of recognition. But the witch's face remained unreadable, her gaze cold as the depths themselves. "So, the little fish comes to play," Mariah's voice echoed through the water, smooth and sinister. "I wondered when you would arrive." Arya didn't respond. She couldn't afford to waste time with words. She glanced over Mariah's shoulder at the drowned girl, the one the witches had come for. She was lying on an altar made of coral, her body pale and still, her long hair tangled around her neck like ropes. The girl's skin shimmered faintly, but her chest did not rise with breath. Arya swam closer, her heart aching for the girl. She was just another victim, like the many before her, caught in the relentless web of the sea's demand. But Arya wasn't here to pity her. She was here to save her. "You're too late," Mariah said, her smile wicked and knowing. "The girl has already given her blood. The pact is sealed." Arya clenched her fists, a cold fury rising inside her. "I don't care about your pact. I'm here to take her back." Mariah laughed softly, a sound like a distant storm. "You think you can defy the sea? You think you can take what it has claimed?" Arya's gaze flickered to the stone gate behind Mariah. It was the heart of the sea's power, its greatest secret. The drowned girl, who lay on the coral altar, was the key to everything. She was the one who would seal the fate of the Omi family and the entire world above. "You don't understand, do you?" Mariah said, her voice now laced with malice. "The sea doesn't just take what it wants. It chooses." Arya felt a shiver run through her as she realized the truth. The sea wasn't just demanding a price, it was creating a new balance. One that would drown the land and swallow the sky. "I won't let you," Arya said, her voice filled with determination. She swam toward the altar, her hands reaching for the girl's cold wrist. But before she could touch her, one of the witches moved. A swift motion, faster than Arya's eyes could follow, and the water around her shimmered with dark magic. It was as if the very ocean had turned against her. Arya gasped as a wave of force slammed into her chest, pushing her backward. She struggled to stay afloat, but the current was too strong. The witches circled her like sharks, their eyes glowing with power. "You're a fool, Arya," Mariah said. "The sea will have what it wants. And there's nothing you can do to stop it." Arya's heart pounded in her chest. The water around her churned with energy, swirling into a whirlpool that threatened to pull her under. She had to think fast. She couldn't let the sea take the drowned girl. She couldn't let Mariah win. Arya's fingers tightened around the necklace Umoja had given her. The lion teeth clinked softly in the water, and for a moment, she felt the power of her ancestors surge through her. The sea witches might have the magic of the ocean at their command, but Arya had something they did not. She had the strength of the Omi women. With a burst of energy, Arya swam upward, breaking through the magical grip of the witches. She shot toward the altar, her body moving faster than she had ever swum before. Her legs shimmered with the marks of the ocean as they twisted and transformed into powerful fins. The water parted around her as she reached the drowned girl, her hands shaking as she touched the girl's cold wrist. The moment her skin made contact, the water around them froze. The sea screamed in fury. The witches' voices joined together in a high-pitched wail, but it was no match for the power Arya had summoned. The ocean itself trembled, as if it were alive, and in that moment, Arya realized the truth. The sea wasn't a force to be controlled. It was a living, breathing entity, with its own will. But she was no longer afraid of it. She had the blood of the river in her veins, and that was something the sea could never take away. Arya pulled the drowned girl into her arms. She would not let her be claimed. Not today. But just as she turned to swim toward the gate, a voice stopped her. "Arya, Mariah called, her tone soft and dark. You've made a mistake. Arya's heart skipped. She didn't dare turn around. Do you think you can escape the sea's embrace? Mariah asked, her voice drifting through the water like a song. Do you think you can take what it has already chosen? Arya swam faster, but she knew deep down that Mariah was right. She was playing a dangerous game. And no matter how hard she swam, the sea would always be watching. The water around Arya shimmered with an eerie glow as she swam through the darkness of the trench of tears, clutching the drowned girl in her arms. The ocean had fallen quiet, almost too quiet, as though it were holding its breath. Arya's heart hammered in her chest, her mind racing with a single thought: escape. She had to escape. But even as she swam faster, her instincts screamed that something was wrong. Mariah's words echoed in her mind, do you think you can escape the sea's embrace? Arya shook her head. No. She wasn't just running away from the witches. She was running from a curse. A pact. A destiny written in the very waves that carried her ancestors. The drowned girl's limp body was cold, her hair flowing like a net of silver seaweed behind her. Arya's heart ached as she looked at the girl, so young, so full of potential, now nothing but a pawn in a game she had never agreed to play. But how could she save her? How could she stop the sea from taking what it demanded? Arya's legs, now transformed into sleek, powerful fins, sliced through the water like a blade. The current seemed to shift around her, as if the very sea was trying to pull her back. But she pushed forward, ignoring the pull, ignoring the whispering voices in the depths. The sea gate came into view. It loomed ahead, a massive stone archway covered in barnacles and coral, its surface smooth and cold. The stingrays that had guarded it earlier were gone, as though they had disappeared into the very fabric of the ocean. Arya's pulse quickened. She was so close now. Just a little further. But as she reached out to touch the stone arch, something stopped her. The sea. It surged forward like a wall of water, crashing over her with an unnatural force. Arya gasped, her breath stolen by the cold pressure. She tried to push forward, but the water held her back, its grip tightening around her chest. The drowned girl slipped from her arms, floating away in the dark current. Arya screamed, but her voice was lost in the depths. She reached for the girl, her fingers brushing her limp form, but the ocean wouldn't let her go. Enough, a voice commanded. Arya froze. The voice was low, deep, like the rumble of thunder beneath the waves. It came from all around her, inside the water, inside her very bones. The sea had spoken. A figure emerged from the darkness. A tall, imposing woman, her skin glistening like mother of pearl, her hair a tangled mass of seaweed that seemed to move with a life of its own. She was a mermaid, but not like any Arya had seen before. Her eyes glowed with the same blue light as the witches, but there was something more. Something ancient. You've made a terrible mistake, child, the mermaid said, her voice both gentle and threatening. The sea always takes what it is owed. Arya's blood ran cold. Who are you? The mermaid's lips curled into a sad, knowing smile. I am the spirit of the sea. The one who watches over all who swim beneath its waves. You have angered it. Arya's mind raced. The spirit of the sea. This was no ordinary mermaid, this was the very force that had governed the balance between the land and the water for centuries. The mermaid's eyes flickered toward the drowned girl, who now floated farther away. The child has given herself to the sea, the spirit continued. Her blood has sealed the pact. You cannot take her back. Arya's chest tightened. But she didn't choose this. She didn't. The mermaid's gaze softened, but her voice remained firm. The sea chooses. It always chooses. No. Arya shouted, her hands reaching out again, but the water around her surged with an unstoppable force, pushing her back. I will not let this happen. The mermaid's expression darkened. You are defying the very laws that have kept this world in balance for generations. You will pay for it. I don't care about balance. Arya cried, her voice rising in desperation. I care about my sister, my family. We were never meant to be slaves to the sea. You don't understand. I refuse to be another sacrifice. The mermaid's eyes flashed with an unreadable emotion. For a moment, the tension in the water seemed to ease. I know what it is to be bound, the spirit said softly. I was once human, long ago. The sea claimed me, just as it claimed you, just as it claims all those who cross its path. The Omi bloodline was never meant to be free. You are its children, its eternal children. Arya's chest tightened with a horrible realization. The sea didn't just take, they became part of it. Her grandmother's comb, the whispers in her dreams, the transformation on her 16th birthday, they weren't accidents. They were part of a larger, darker design. The spirit of the sea reached toward Arya, her fingers glowing with the same ocean magic. It is not too late to join us, child. To embrace your destiny. Arya recoiled, her pulse racing. I won't be a part of this. I won't. The mermaid's eyes narrowed. Then you must face the consequences. The sea will not let you defy it without cost. With a sudden, violent motion, the water around Arya began to whirl. She was sucked into the current, spinning helplessly as the ocean closed in on her. Her body twisted and turned, her breath caught in her throat. She reached out for the surface, but the waves crashed over her, drowning her in an endless, crushing tide. And then, everything went dark. When Arya awoke, she was no longer in the trench of tears. The water was still, calm, as though the sea had momentarily released its grip. Arya coughed, choking on the salt water that filled her lungs, her body shivering with exhaustion. She was lying on the floor of an unfamiliar chamber, a cold, stone floor that felt far too solid for her to be underwater. A voice spoke from the shadows. You're awake, finally. Arya's heart leaped in her chest. She looked up. It was Prince Kibu. Arya blinked against the dim light, her eyes struggling to adjust. The air felt thick around her, the salty tang of the sea still lingering, but the weight of the water had lifted. She was no longer in the heart of the trench of tears. She was in a place that felt like both the sea and the land, a strange in-between, a place where the worlds collided. And there, standing in the shadows, was Prince Kibu. Arya's heart skipped in her chest. He was as regal as ever, his long dark hair flowing like a river, his sharp features softened by the light that flickered from the edges of the cavern they were in. His eyes, those deep, haunting eyes, were locked onto hers, and despite everything, she felt a sense of relief wash over her. He was here. But there was something strange about him. His eyes, usually warm and full of life, now seemed distant, clouded with a sadness that Arya couldn't place. Kibu, Arya whispered, her voice hoarse from the water. What is this place? Kibu stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate. The echo of his footsteps reverberated around the chamber, bouncing off the smooth stone walls like whispers from the past. He looked down at Arya, his expression unreadable, before he finally spoke. This is the sanctuary of the drowned, he said softly. A place between the worlds, where the sea's power holds no dominion. Arya's mind raced. The sanctuary of the drowned. She had never heard of it, but there was something familiar about the name, something that stirred a memory buried deep within her. Why am I here? She asked, struggling to sit up. Her legs, her fins, were now back to their human form, but they felt strange, as though the transformation was still lingering within her. She could feel the pull of the ocean deep inside, like an unshakable weight. Kibu didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at her with a pained expression, as if torn between something unspoken and the desire to protect her. He ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time, Arya noticed something strange about his appearance. His skin shimmered faintly, the same way the sea glittered under the moonlight. I've been hearing voices, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. Voices from the deep. 4 years. They've been calling me, Arya. Calling me home. Arya's heart clenched. What do you mean, calling you home? You're the Prince of Tula, Kibu. You belong there, with your people. Kibu's gaze hardened, but it was not with anger. It was something far darker. He stepped closer, his shadow falling across her as he knelt beside her. I thought I was just hearing the sea, just like you. But it wasn't the sea, Arya. It was something else, someone else. The ocean is not just a body of water, it is a living entity, full of ancient magic, older than the land itself. It knows things. It remembers. Arya's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying that the sea is in me, Arya. Not just the bloodline of my family, not just the magic of the land and river, but the ocean itself. It flows through my veins. And the voices I've been hearing? They are the voices of my ancestors, of a forgotten line of kings who were born from the sea. Arya's eyes widened. You're part mermaid. Kibu nodded slowly, his face grim. In a way. My father, King Adarimi, never spoke of it, but the truth runs deeper than the river. The sea claimed me before I was born. It has always called to me, but I never knew why, until now. Arya's mind swirled with the implications of his words. She had always suspected there was more to Kibu than met the eye, his connection to the sea, his dreams of drowning, the way he seemed to know things about the ocean that no one else did. But to hear that he was tied to it in such an intimate way, she didn't know what to think. But if the sea claims you, then what does that mean for us? Arya asked, her voice shaking with the weight of everything that had happened. What does that mean for me? For the house of Omi? For the world above? Kibu stood, turning away from her as if gathering his thoughts. I don't know yet. But I do know this, your family, the Omi bloodline, was never meant to be at odds with the sea. The sea has always claimed one of you, always demanded a sacrifice. It is the price of peace. But there is something more, Arya. Something hidden. Something that even the sea is afraid of. Arya's heart raced. What do you mean? I've seen it in the dreams, the same dreams you've had. Your grandmother's comb, the way it glows with the markings of the sea. There's a truth hidden in your bloodline, something forgotten by both the land and the ocean. The sea has demanded sacrifices for centuries, but it has always hidden its true nature, its true cost. Arya felt the weight of Kibu's words settle deep within her bones. She had known there was something more to her family's curse, something darker than she had been told. But hearing Kibu speak of it so openly, so calmly, was like hearing the death knell of a long-forgotten world. You have to help me, Kibu, Arya whispered, her voice filled with urgency. I have to stop this. I can't be the one to pay the price. I won't sacrifice another Omi girl to the sea. Kibu turned toward her, his face softening for the first time since she had arrived. You can't stop the ocean, Arya. It has a mind of its own. But I can help you uncover the truth. I can help you understand what the sea really wants. Arya swallowed hard. She knew Kibu was right. The sea wasn't something they could simply defy. It was a force older than anything they could comprehend. But there had to be a way to stop it. There had to be a way to save her family, to save herself, without giving in to the blood price that the ocean demanded. Suddenly, Kibu reached out and grasped her hand. His touch was warm, almost feverish. I've seen it in the depths, he said, his voice full of resolve. There is a way, Arya. But it's dangerous. We'll have to face the heart of the sea itself to find the truth. And even then, it may not be enough. Arya stared at him, her heart pounding. I'll do whatever it takes. But we need to hurry. The sea won't wait for us. Kibu nodded, his face set in grim determination. Then let's find it. Together. The water was colder than Arya had ever felt before. They swam in the stillness, the silence pressing in around them like a weight. The only sound was the rhythmic echo of their movements, the soft flicker of fins and tails gliding through the water. The dim light from the cavern above had faded into nothingness, and now, only the faint glow from Kibu's skin illuminated their way. Arya couldn't help but feel a strange sense of foreboding as they swam deeper into the abyss. Every ripple, every flicker of light, seemed to carry whispers from the sea itself. Voices, faint at first, but growing louder as they ventured farther from the surface. They sounded like cries of sorrow, lost souls trapped beneath the waves. Kibu, his expression unreadable, led the way. His movements were smooth and sure, his fins cutting through the water with a grace that only someone born of the sea could possess. Arya, on the other hand, struggled to keep up. The weight of the sea pressed against her, the pressure building in her chest as they descended deeper and deeper. "How much further?" Arya asked, her voice a soft bubble in the water. Kibu didn't answer immediately. Instead, he paused and turned back to her, his eyes glimmering with an eerie light. "We're getting close," he said finally, his voice low and steady. "The heart of the sea is not just a place. It is a source of power, ancient and dangerous. The sea keeps it hidden for a reason." Arya nodded, her mind racing. She had heard the legends of the heart of the sea, a mythical stone said to hold the very essence of the ocean, its power capable of changing the course of the world. Some said it could grant immortality, others claimed it could bring about destruction. No one truly knew. But now, the fate of her family, her world, seemed to rest on finding it. As they swam, Arya could feel the water shifting around them, the currents growing stronger. The farther they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. It was as though the very ocean was watching them, waiting for something to happen. Kibu slowed as they approached a massive stone formation that rose from the ocean floor. It was a jagged, twisted column of rock, covered in thick layers of coral and barnacles. The air was thick with the scent of salt and decay. This was the place. The heart of the sea was hidden somewhere within this labyrinth of stone. "We must be careful," Kibu said, his voice urgent. "The heart is protected. There are forces here, ancient forces, that will not let us take it without a price." Arya's stomach clenched. She had no doubt that the sea would not simply give them what they wanted. The ocean never gave anything freely. They approached the base of the stone column, and Kibu extended his hand. A pulse of magic radiated from his palm, lighting up the dark space around them. Slowly, the rock in front of them began to shift. The stones groaned, their ancient surfaces grinding against each other, and a narrow opening appeared, a tunnel, dark and narrow, stretching deep into the heart of the rock. Arya's heart raced, and despite the cold, a bead of sweat appeared on her forehead. What lies ahead? Kibu didn't answer. Instead, he simply motioned for her to follow. The tunnel was narrow and winding, the walls slick with seaweed and algae. The water grew colder with every passing moment, and Arya could feel the pressure of the ocean closing in around her, the weight of the world pressing against her lungs. She pushed forward, trying not to think about how deep they were. How far from everything they had ever known. Suddenly, the tunnel opened up into a massive chamber, so large that Arya could barely comprehend its size. The water here was still, almost unnaturally calm. The air was thick with the scent of the ocean, and a faint glow pulsed from the depths, lighting up the space with an otherworldly light. At the center of the chamber was a massive stone pedestal, and on it, resting within the hollow of the rock, was the heart of the sea. It was a stone like no other, a dark, swirling mass of energy, its surface shifting and changing like the very ocean itself. At first glance, it appeared to be a simple stone, but the closer Arya got, the more she could feel its power. It pulsed with a heartbeat that echoed in her chest, a rhythm that matched her own. Kibu stepped forward, his hand outstretched. "This is it," he whispered. "The heart." Arya's breath caught in her throat as she stepped closer, her eyes locked on the stone. It was beautiful, and terrifying. The legends had been true. But there was something about it that felt wrong, something in the air that made her skin crawl. "The heart is the sea's soul," Kibu murmured. "It gives the ocean its power, its voice, its will. But it also demands a price." Arya reached out, her fingers brushing the surface of the heart. The moment her skin made contact, a jolt of energy shot through her, and her vision blurred. She gasped, pulling her hand back in shock. "What's happening?" she asked, her voice shaky. Kibu's eyes were wide with fear. "The heart is awakening. It senses your blood, Arya. Your connection to the sea. It knows you're not meant to be here. It's fighting you." Arya's chest tightened. She could feel the weight of the sea pressing against her again, the power of the heart swirling around her like a storm. Her legs, her fins, began to glow, the marks of the ocean flaring to life along her skin. "We have to leave," Kibu said urgently, his voice trembling with fear. "We're not prepared for this. We don't know what it will do." But Arya didn't move. She was frozen, her gaze fixed on the heart, her mind racing with the weight of what Kibu had said. If the heart of the sea held the power to change everything, could it be the key to breaking her family's curse? Could it be the answer she had been searching for? Or would it pull her deeper into the ocean's grasp, trapping her forever? She didn't know. But one thing was certain, her journey had only just begun. Arya could feel it in her bones, in the very marrow of her being. The power of the heart was alive, pulsing with an energy so ancient, it seemed to resonate with every thought, every emotion that rushed through her. The ocean itself was stirring, shifting in response to her touch. A wave of vertigo hit her, and she staggered back, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The water around her began to swirl violently, as if the ocean itself was reacting to her presence. The stone of the heart glowed brighter, its light pulsing in sync with the beating of her own heart, until it became blinding. "Arya, pull away." Kibu's voice was strained, almost panicked, as he reached out to grab her arm, but the force of the energy between them was too strong. She felt as if she were being pulled towards the heart, her body locked in place by an invisible force. It was as if the sea itself had taken hold of her. The chamber around them began to shake. The walls of rock groaned and cracked, and the water churned violently, rising higher and higher. Arya could hear the distant sound of waves crashing, the roar of a storm far beyond anything she had ever known. It was as if the entire ocean was awake, aware, and angry. Kibu's hand gripped hers tighter. "Arya, listen to me," he shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of the water. "You're awakening something you can't control. The heart is too powerful for you to handle alone." But Arya couldn't tear herself away. The heart's energy was now coursing through her, and it felt like it was unlocking something deep within her, a part of herself she had never known existed. She could feel the ocean calling to her, urging her to embrace its power, to become one with it. "No," she gasped, shaking her head as she tried to fight against the pull. "I won't become like them. I won't." But before she could finish, a deep, resonating voice filled her mind. It was not Kibu's voice. It was the voice of the ocean itself, ancient and all-knowing. "You cannot deny what you are. You are Omi. You are mine." Arya froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The words reverberated in her skull, each syllable an unrelenting echo of truth. The sea knew her bloodline, knew the very essence of who she was. And it wanted her. It wanted her as it had wanted every Omi daughter before her. "No," Arya whispered again, but this time, it was not to Kibu. It was to the ocean. The words felt weak, like a cry in the wind. "I'm not ready." The light from the heart flared, blinding her vision. And then, all at once, it was as if the ocean reached inside her, pulling her very soul into its depths. Arya's body convulsed as she was consumed by a flood of images and memories. She saw the distant past, saw her ancestors, each one a woman of the house of Omi, standing on the shores, their faces serene but filled with the weight of their curse. She saw the first of them, her great-great-grandmother, who had given her life to the sea to ensure peace between the realms of water and land. She saw the blood price. She saw how every Omi daughter, at 16, would feel the ocean's pull, an unbreakable bond that tied them to the sea. But the price was always the same. The price was blood. Arya gasped for breath as the flood of memories receded, her body still trembling from the energy that had overwhelmed her. She blinked, trying to clear her vision, and found herself on her knees in the water, gasping for air. Kibu was beside her, his face pale with fear. His hand reached out to steady her, but his eyes were fixed on something behind her, something she couldn't see. "Arya," he whispered, his voice low with concern. "What did you see?" Arya didn't answer right away. She was still struggling to make sense of the images, the memories of the sea and her ancestors, still echoing in her mind. The voice. The pull. "Are you all right?" Kibu asked again, more urgently. She blinked and looked up at him, shaking her head to clear the fog that seemed to cloud her thoughts. "The sea," it spoke to me. Kibu's expression faltered. What did it say? Arya looked at him, her eyes wide with fear and realization. It said, I am Omi. And I am the one who must pay the price. She swallowed hard. But I won't. I can't. Kibu's face hardened. You don't have to do it alone, Arya. We can find another way. The heart can be broken. The curse can be ended. Arya stared at him, the fear in her heart twisting into something else. Something desperate. But how, Kibu? How can we stop it when the ocean has already claimed me? Kibu didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked back at the heart, still pulsing with energy, and then down at the stone pedestal it rested on. He frowned. There is a way, he said slowly, his voice filled with the kind of certainty Arya had rarely heard from him. But it's dangerous. And it will cost us both. Arya's heart raced. What do you mean? What way? Kibu turned to face her, his expression grim. We must reach the heart's core. There, we can sever the connection between the Omi bloodline and the sea. But to do that, we must face the deepest, most dangerous part of the ocean. We'll have to face the sea's will, and it won't let us go without a fight. Arya's breath caught in her throat. She could feel the pull of the sea still lingering in her veins, and the thought of going deeper into the heart of the ocean, facing whatever lay within, made her blood run cold. But there was no choice. She couldn't let the sea take her. She couldn't let it take another Omi girl. She looked at Kibu, her resolve hardening. Then let's go. Together. Kibu nodded, and together, they turned toward the heart, preparing to face whatever the ocean had in store for them. The chamber around them seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of the sea, its walls alive with the power of the ocean. Arya could feel it, deep in her bones, in the very fabric of her being. The ocean was not just a body of water, not just a place of mystery and beauty. It was alive. It was a force of nature that could not be controlled, not even by the ancient bloodlines of her family. Kibu's hand was still gripping hers, his fingers warm against her cold skin. His eyes were intense, focused on the heart of the sea, the stone that had begun to glow even brighter in the wake of her touch. We have to break the connection, Kibu said softly, his voice steady but filled with a quiet fear. If we don't, the sea will claim you, and it will claim everything else. Arya nodded, swallowing against the lump in her throat. She could feel the sea, feel its eyes on her, as if it were watching her every move. It had given her a glimpse of its power, but now it seemed to be waiting. Waiting for her to act. What do we need to do? Arya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kibu glanced down at the pedestal, his gaze narrowing as he studied the heart. To break the connection, we must reach the heart's core. That's where the power lies, the essence of the sea, of the bloodline. It's where the curse began. But we must be prepared. Once we enter the heart's core, we won't be able to leave until it's done. The ocean will test us. Arya shuddered. What kind of test? Kibu's gaze met hers. The kind that could destroy us if we fail. Arya's heart pounded in her chest. The weight of their task pressed down on her, but she knew there was no other choice. She couldn't let the ocean claim her, and she couldn't let it continue to claim the daughters of the Omi family, generation after generation. Without another word, Kibu led the way, swimming towards the heart, his movements fluid and powerful. Arya followed closely behind, her breath shallow as they approached the stone. The water around them seemed to grow colder, and the pressure of the ocean grew heavier. As they neared the pedestal, the heart began to pulse in time with the beating of Arya's heart. She could feel it, a pull, a force calling her. The sea wanted her. It wanted all of her. You're ready, Kibu said, his voice a calm contrast to the chaos around them. Don't resist it. You must go through it, not around it. Arya nodded, though fear gnawed at her insides. She knew this was the moment. The moment that would change everything. Together, they reached the heart, and Kibu extended his hand towards it. With a deep breath, Arya placed her palm against the stone, the cold surface sending a shock of ice through her body. The moment her skin touched the heart, the water around them began to swirl violently. A powerful current ripped through the chamber, pulling them both toward the center of the heart. Arya's grip on the stone tightened, and she felt herself being dragged deeper, deeper into the heart's core. Her vision blurred, and suddenly, she was no longer in the chamber. The world around her shifted, dissolving into swirling shades of blue and green. She was underwater, deeper than she had ever been before. The weight of the ocean pressed in on her from all sides, and the water around her was filled with the voices of the sea. Omi. The voice echoed in her mind, and it was as though the ocean itself spoke her name. Omi, daughter of the sea, blood of the waves, you are mine. Arya gasped for breath, but there was no air. She was surrounded by water, engulfed in it. Her legs, her mermaid tail, glowed brighter, the markings of the ocean burning like fire on her skin. Her heart raced as the sea's grip tightened around her, pulling her deeper. No. Arya shouted in her mind. She tried to swim, to push herself away, but the current was too strong. The water held her fast, and the voices whispered louder, urging her to surrender, to accept her fate. But Arya refused. She had always fought the ocean's pull. She had always resisted it. And now, more than ever, she needed to break free. Through the swirling chaos, she caught a glimpse of something ahead, something dark and powerful. It was the core of the heart, pulsing with a dark energy. She could feel it in her bones, the very heart of the sea, the source of all its power. Arya. Kibu's voice cut through the storm, sharp and urgent. You have to reach it. You have to sever the connection. Arya's vision cleared, and she saw Kibu swimming beside her, his expression strained but resolute. He reached out to her, his hand gripping hers once more, and together, they pushed toward the dark heart of the ocean. The closer they got, the stronger the pull became. It was as if the ocean was trying to consume them, trying to drag them down into its depths. Hold on. Kibu shouted, his voice almost drowned out by the roaring sea. With one final push, they reached the core, the heart of the sea, and Arya could feel its power surge through her, its energy crackling in the water. She gritted her teeth, summoning every ounce of strength she had, and placed her hand on the core. The moment her fingers made contact, the ocean exploded around them. A shockwave of energy ripped through the water, and the chamber seemed to collapse in on itself. Arya felt the energy of the heart surge through her, rushing through every fiber of her being. The sea cried out, a loud, agonizing wail that reverberated through the water, and then, with a final, resounding crack, the power of the heart shattered. Arya was thrown backward by the force, her body spinning through the water. The light from the heart flickered, then dimmed, and the ocean around her stilled. Kibu grabbed her arm and pulled her to him, his grip strong as he held her close. For a moment, they floated in the stillness, the water around them calm for the first time since they had entered the heart's core. Arya gasped for breath, the air around her now thick with the salty scent of the sea. She could feel the weight of the ocean lifting from her shoulders, the oppressive force of its grip loosening. We did it, Kibu whispered, his voice hoarse. He gazed at her with a mixture of awe and relief. Arya looked around, her heart still racing in her chest. The chamber was silent now, the heart gone. The sea, for the first time in centuries, felt at peace. But Arya knew that their journey was far from over. The ocean may have calmed for now, but there were still answers to be found. There was still the question of her bloodline, of the curse that had bound the Omi family to the sea for generations. The ocean may have let them go, but its secrets were far from revealed. The silence that enveloped the chamber was unnerving. The water around them, once so full of life and chaos, now hung still, like the calm after a storm. The heart of the sea had been shattered, its power gone, but Arya could still feel its lingering presence in her veins, like a faint echo. Kibu's grip on her arm was tight, but comforting. His face was pale, his breath ragged from the intense energy they had just unleashed. He glanced around, his eyes searching the dark waters as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. We did it, Arya whispered, but her voice lacked the triumphant ring she had hoped for. It felt too empty, too hollow. It's over. But Kibu didn't respond immediately. His eyes were fixed on the shadows beyond them, where the last flickers of the heart's energy had disappeared. There was something in the way he held himself, tense and alert, that made Arya's pulse quicken. Something was not right. "Arya," Kibu said slowly, his voice filled with an uneasy edge, "do you feel that?" She frowned, trying to sense what he was talking about. For a moment, everything seemed still, as if the sea itself was holding its breath. But then, just beneath the surface, she felt it, a deep, unsettling pull. A current that was not natural. It was like the ocean itself was shifting, its moods changing. The water around them seemed to tremble, the shadows of the deep swirling and darkening. Arya's heart began to race again. The ocean had been quiet for so long, but now, it was waking up, again. "I feel it," she said, her voice tight with fear. "It's not over, is it?" Kibu shook his head, his expression grave. "No. The heart may be broken, but the sea isn't done with us. It's shifting. It's angry." Arya's throat tightened as she tried to make sense of what was happening. The heart was gone. The curse was supposed to be lifted. But the ocean was still alive, still hungry. "We need to get out of here," she said quickly, panic creeping into her chest. "Before it's too late." But as she turned to swim toward the exit, something in the water caught her eye, something dark, something moving with unnatural speed. Arya froze, her breath caught in her throat. "What is that?" Kibu followed her gaze and went still. His face went pale as he whispered, "No." From the depths of the chamber, rising up toward them, was a shape, a dark silhouette in the water, moving faster than any creature should. It was massive, far too large to be anything natural. Arya's heart thudded painfully in her chest. "What is it?" Kibu didn't answer. He was too busy watching the creature approach, his eyes wide with horror. Arya could feel it too now, the power emanating from the figure as it drew closer, the very water around it crackling with energy. And then, with a surge of terrifying force, it broke the surface. A creature unlike anything Arya had ever seen, part woman, part sea monster, her skin a slick, dark blue, glistening with scales that reflected the dim light. Her hair was a mass of tangled seaweed, and her eyes were the color of the deepest part of the ocean, swirling with dark magic. She was a sea witch. But not like any Arya had encountered before. This one was older, far older, her power ancient and twisted. Her very presence seemed to warp the water around her, making the very sea recoil in fear. "You broke the heart," the witch hissed, her voice a chilling whisper that echoed through the water. "You thought you could escape me. You thought you could escape the sea." Arya's throat went dry. The woman's eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, Arya was paralyzed, as if the witch's gaze had frozen her in place. "You are a fool," the witch continued, her voice rising in anger. "The sea is mine to control. You cannot sever what was never meant to be severed." Arya felt Kibu's hand on her arm, pulling her back, urging her to move. But it was too late. The witch's power was already overwhelming the water, twisting it into shapes that should never have existed. The walls of the chamber began to crack, and the very rocks seemed to bend under the pressure of the witch's magic. Kibu's voice was low and strained as he spoke, his grip tightening. "Arya, we need to fight back. We can't let her." But before he could finish, the witch raised her arms, and a wave of dark energy crashed toward them, propelling them both backward. Arya struggled to maintain her hold on Kibu, but the force of the wave was too strong. She was thrown against the walls of the chamber, her body slamming into the rock with a sickening thud. Everything around her blurred, and for a moment, Arya felt herself slipping into unconsciousness. But then, just as quickly as it came, the wave ceased. The water stilled. Arya blinked, disoriented. She pushed herself up, her body aching from the force of the impact, but Kibu was already at her side, his eyes wide with shock. The witch had disappeared. But the water around them had changed. It was no longer calm. No longer still. A dark current, swirling with dangerous energy, now surrounded them. The ocean was awake, angry, alive, and very much in control. Kibu reached out, pulling Arya toward him. "We need to leave. Now." But even as he spoke, the sea was shifting. Moving. Swelling with power. And from the depths, the witch's voice echoed in the water once more. The price is far greater than you can imagine, Omi. The water was no longer the peaceful realm Arya had known. It had become a chaotic storm, a tempest born from the witch's dark magic. The sea itself seemed to boil with anger, the currents crashing violently against the walls of the chamber, threatening to drag them under. Arya struggled to keep her head above the turbulent waters. Her heart was racing, fear creeping into her chest. Kibu was holding onto her tightly, but even his strength seemed to be tested by the overwhelming power of the sea. It was as if the ocean itself had turned against them, and they were caught in the middle of a battle they did not understand. "We have to get out of here," Arya shouted, her voice barely audible above the roar of the waves. Kibu nodded, but his eyes were filled with worry. He wasn't just afraid of the sea. He was afraid of something deeper, the witch, the ancient magic that controlled everything they had fought for. The heart of the sea had been shattered, but the witch's presence still loomed, as if her dark power had seeped into the very fabric of the ocean. "We can't escape it," Kibu muttered, pulling Arya closer. "The curse, it's still alive. The heart was never the true source of the magic." Arya felt a chill run down her spine. What did he mean by that? Had they not just broken the heart? Hadn't they done what they needed to do to free themselves from the ocean's grip? But as the water swirled around them, her thoughts became jumbled. She could feel the witch's magic, dark and cold, wrapping around her like an icy chain. It wasn't just the heart that had held the sea's power, it was the blood of the Omi family. Her blood. Her curse. "This curse," Arya said, her voice trembling, "it's never been about the heart, has it? It's been in my family's blood all along." Kibu looked at her, his expression grim. "Yes. The heart was a symbol, a focal point, but the magic, the control, it's always been in the blood of the Omi family. You were born to this. And breaking the heart doesn't erase that. It only set something else in motion." Arya felt her stomach churn. The realization hit her like a wave. She had been born into a curse, one that bound her to the sea. The heart had been the key to unlocking it, but that key was only a part of a much darker and deeper truth. "Then, what do we do now?" Arya whispered, her heart heavy with dread. "How do we stop it?" Kibu's eyes darkened, his face drawn in pain. "We can't stop it. Not fully. But we can try to break the chain. We have to confront the witch, face her and her magic. Only then will the sea release us. But we'll need to make a sacrifice." Arya's heart skipped a beat. "A sacrifice," she repeated. The words felt like an anchor sinking her deeper into the sea. "What kind of sacrifice?" Kibu hesitated. "The sea demands blood." "Your blood." Arya's breath caught in her throat. She recoiled, instinctively stepping back. "You're saying I have to give my life to the sea?" "No," Kibu shook his head fiercely. "Not your life. But a part of you. Something that will sever your bond to the ocean. It's the only way to stop the curse." Arya stared at him, her mind racing. How could she possibly sacrifice anything more? Hadn't she already given so much? Her family's legacy, the mark of the mermaid that had once been a gift, now felt like a curse, something she had been born into but could never escape. But as the witch's voice echoed through the water, Arya knew there was no other choice. "We don't have time," Kibu said urgently, pulling her back to reality. "The witch's magic is growing stronger. The sea's anger is only a taste of what's to come if we don't act now." Arya nodded, steeling herself. She had always known that the ocean was part of her bloodline, part of her identity. But now, she had to decide what part of herself she was willing to give up to break the curse. The water around them began to shift again, more violently now, as if the sea itself sensed their indecision. The pressure of the ocean was mounting, crushing them from all sides. Arya could feel the weight of the water pressing in on her, squeezing the air from her lungs. A dark shape emerged from the depths, growing closer and closer. It was the witch, her figure silhouetted against the swirling darkness of the sea. Her eyes glowed with an unearthly light, and her mouth curled into a cruel smile as she saw them. "You cannot escape me," the witch said, her voice dripping with malice. "You will give what is mine, Omi. You will give the blood of your line, and in return, I will allow you to live. But you will never be free." Arya's heart clenched in fear. The witch was right. The sea would never let them go. But Kibu was already swimming toward the witch, his face set in determination. "No," he said, his voice strong. "We're not giving you anything." The witch laughed, a sound that made Arya's skin crawl. "You think you have a choice? You are nothing but puppets in the hands of the ocean, Omi. Your blood binds you to it. No matter how much you fight, it will always call you back." The water around them surged, and the witch raised her arms, summoning a dark, swirling vortex in the center of the chamber. Arya's heart skipped as the water began to churn, pulling everything into the center. The witch was using her magic to draw them in, to drown them in the very power they had hoped to escape. Arya's eyes locked onto Kibu's, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. She knew what they had to do, what she had to do. She couldn't escape the ocean. She couldn't escape the curse. But she could control it. With a deep breath, Arya reached out, her fingers brushing the cold water around her. She closed her eyes and began to summon the power of her blood, the power of the ocean that flowed through her veins. She could feel it awakening inside her, the magic of the sea responding to her call. But as she focused, she felt something else, a tug, deep in her soul. It was the part of her that had always resisted the ocean. The part of her that had tried to break free. Arya opened her eyes, and with a single, final cry, she released her hold on the sea. The vortex stopped. The water stilled. And the ocean, for the first time in her life, began to listen. The waters around them stilled. Arya couldn't believe it. She had done it. The sea, for the first time in her life, was not raging. The dark, swirling vortex that the witch had conjured disappeared as though it had never been there. The water was calm, eerily still, and the pressure that had been crushing her chest was gone. But that did not mean the danger had passed. In fact, it felt like the calm before a much greater storm. Kibu was still holding on to her, his eyes wide with disbelief as he glanced around the chamber. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. He was still recovering from the shock of Arya's power, the magic she had called forth to quiet the sea. "What did you do?" Kibu asked, his voice a mix of awe and fear. "How did you?" Arya shook her head, struggling to catch her breath. She couldn't explain it. It had been as though something inside her had awakened, something that had always been there, waiting for the right moment. She had reached deep into her blood, deep into the ocean's power, and instead of letting it control her, she had controlled it. But that power, it had come at a cost. The sea was still, yes. But in the quiet, something darker was waiting to emerge. A soft, eerie laugh echoed through the chamber. It was the witch. The sound seemed to reverberate off the walls, as though it were coming from every direction. "You think you've won, Omi," the witch's voice whispered, cold and cruel. "You think you can tame the ocean? You are a fool." Arya's heart sank. She had hoped, maybe, just maybe, they had escaped. But no. The witch's laughter only deepened the pit of dread in her stomach. "I am the ocean," the witch continued. "You cannot escape your bloodline. The curse is in your veins. The moment you tried to break it, you bound yourself to something much worse." The water around them began to ripple, then churn. Arya's stomach dropped. She had done it. She had quieted the ocean, but the magic had not been destroyed. It had only been shifted, twisted. "Get ready," Kibu said, his voice grim. "We need to move. We're not out of danger yet." Before Arya could respond, the witch materialized in the center of the chamber, her form rising from the depths like a nightmarish figure. She was more terrifying than before, her eyes glowing with fury. She was no longer just a sea witch, she had become something far worse, her power now drawn from the very depths of the ocean, from its darkest corners. "You think you control the sea," the witch sneered. "I am the one who controls you." Arya's heart raced. She had thought that calling on the ocean's magic would free her from the curse, but now she realized the truth: there was no escaping it. No matter how much she fought, no matter how many pieces of herself she gave up, the ocean would always have a claim on her. It would always be there, waiting. But there was something else in the air now. A strange, cold sensation. Arya glanced at Kibu, who seemed to notice it too. He looked at her, his face filled with the same realization. "It's not just you," Kibu whispered. She's using your blood. Your magic. It's how she's getting stronger." Arya's eyes widened. She had used her blood, her power, to quiet the ocean. But in doing so, she had given the witch access to it as well. The curse had never been fully hers to break. The witch had bound herself to Arya's bloodline, and no matter how much she fought, it had always been the witch's power that would rise when Arya faltered. "Listen to me, Omi," the witch hissed. "You are nothing. Your bloodline belongs to me. And now you will serve me, just like all the other daughters of your family." Arya felt the blood drain from her face. The witch was not only threatening her life. She was threatening the very essence of who Arya was. The witch wanted to break her spirit, to enslave her, not just in body, but in soul. Kibu stepped forward, standing between Arya and the witch, his posture tense. "We will never serve you." The witch's smile twisted into something sinister. "You are already mine, Kibu. You just don't know it yet." Arya's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. The witch's smile widened. "Did you think it was only the Omi family I had my eyes on?" she crooned. "Did you think I was only after Arya?" Arya's gaze snapped to Kibu, her confusion turning to fear. "Kibu, what is she talking about?" Kibu's face paled, his eyes widening with realization. "No," he muttered, backing away. "No, it can't be." But it was too late. The witch's magic was already reaching for him. Before either of them could react, the witch's hand shot out, and Kibu was yanked into the water. He gasped, struggling, but the magic held him tight. Arya reached out in a panic, but a powerful force knocked her back, slamming her into the stone wall of the chamber. "No!" Arya screamed, but the witch's laughter echoed again, sending a cold shiver through her bones. "You think you control the sea, Omi," the witch's voice mocked. "I control what you love. What you fear. And I have always controlled him." Arya's blood ran cold as she realized the truth. Kibu wasn't just a prince. He wasn't just someone who had been caught in the middle of her fight. He was part of the witch's plan from the very beginning. He had been marked long before they met, chosen as a pawn in a much darker game. The witch laughed again, her form disappearing into the swirling darkness of the sea. Arya had thought she was free of the curse. But now she knew the truth. The curse was not something that could be broken, it was something that had to be lived with. And in the end, it would take everything from her. Arya's chest tightened as she stood in the dark, cold chamber, her heart hammering in her ears. The witch's cruel laugh still echoed around her, and Kibu's desperate cries for help had been swallowed by the water's depths. She could still hear the faintest whisper of his voice, but it was fading fast, drowned by the surging tide that seemed to pull him deeper and deeper into the dark abyss. She was paralyzed. Her legs felt like stone, heavy and useless beneath her. Every breath she took felt like a battle against the suffocating grip of the sea. For the first time in her life, Arya felt utterly powerless. But deep within her, something else stirred. A small, flickering flame of anger. She would not, let the witch win. Not again. Without thinking, she pushed herself off the stone wall, her body trembling as she forced her legs to move. She had to save Kibu. There was no other choice. The chamber, once dark and oppressive, began to glow with a faint light, as though the sea itself was waking. Arya's skin prickled with the touch of magic, an ancient, familiar power that rushed through her veins. Her blood, the blood of the Omi family, was calling to the ocean. The same magic that had cursed her was now her only weapon. "Come back, Kibu," Arya whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. "I'm coming for you." The sea roared around her, but this time, it felt different. The waves didn't crash with the same anger. The water seemed to hum with a quiet anticipation, as though waiting for her command. Arya breathed deeply, feeling the power of the ocean flood her senses. It was not the magic of the witch. No, this was something deeper, something ancient. The sea was a part of her, just as it had always been. She held out her hand, and with a deep, steadying breath, she began to speak. Her words were ancient, the language of her ancestors, the language that had once summoned the waters to obey. By the blood of Omi, she whispered, by the waves that carry us all, I call you to return. Release him, and return to the depths. The curse ends here. The water around her began to swirl, slowly at first, then faster, as if responding to her command. But just as Arya felt the first glimmer of hope, a dark figure emerged from the depths of the chamber. The witch. She laughed again, her voice a cruel melody that sent shivers down Arya's spine. You think you can command the sea, the witch mocked, her eyes gleaming with malice. You are nothing but a child of the ocean, Omi. The sea is not yours to control. And neither is he. Arya's blood ran cold. What do you mean? She demanded, stepping forward. What have you done to Kibu? The witch's smile was a slow, wicked curve. You still don't understand, do you? She purred. He is mine. He always has been. The words struck Arya like a blow to the chest. What do you mean, mine? She repeated, her voice shaking. Kibu is not yours. He's just a prince, a man who fell in love with me. He's nothing to do with you. The witch's expression darkened. He is more than a prince. Kibu is the key to breaking the bond between the ocean and your family. He carries the blood of the sea within him, he always has. His ancestors were once rulers of the deep, the first to command the waters. But they betrayed the ocean. Arya's heart skipped a beat. No, that can't be true. Kibu is human, just like me. He's nothing like that. The witch stepped closer, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Do you think the land-born can escape their roots? Kibu was always bound to the sea. The moment he was born, the ocean marked him. Just like your bloodline marked you. You were drawn together because it was written in the tides, Omi. Your love was never yours to choose. Arya's knees nearly buckled as the weight of the witch's words sank in. Kibu wasn't just a prince. He wasn't just a man who had crossed paths with her by chance. He was part of the sea's dark history, an heir to an ancient lineage of waterbound royalty, cursed by his blood just as much as she was. No, Arya whispered, shaking her head in disbelief. You're lying. He can't be a part of this curse. The witch chuckled, low and sinister. Lying. My dear, you were the one who was lied to. The prince's family once ruled the ocean, but they betrayed the waters. And now, it's time to collect the debt. Arya's mind raced. If Kibu was truly a part of this ancient bloodline, then his connection to the sea was even deeper than hers. It was no wonder the ocean had always responded to him, no wonder he had been hearing voices from the depths since he was a child. The witch smiled again, a wicked gleam in her eyes. Now, Kibu is the key to freeing the ocean from its bond to your family. All he has to do is embrace his true nature. And then, your love will be the final sacrifice that will sever the bloodline's curse. Arya felt a sharp pang in her chest. The truth was unbearable. Kibu's love for her had been a lie. He had never truly been free. He had always been tied to the sea, just like she was. But there was still hope. She would not let the witch win. Arya stood tall, her eyes blazing with determination. I don't care about your twisted magic. I don't care about your bloodlines or your curses. I will save Kibu, and I will free us both. The witch's eyes narrowed. You can try. But the bond between you is unbreakable. You will both drown in the depths of your own blood. Arya felt a surge of power deep within her, the sea answering her call. The water around her swirled, glowing with an eerie light. She could feel the ocean's ancient magic stirring, aligning with her own. She was not alone in this. The ocean was hers to command, and she would not let it be twisted by the witch's darkness. Arya raised her hand, calling upon the full strength of her bloodline, the magic that had been passed down through generations. The water began to respond to her will, but it was not just the sea she was calling to. It was the spirits of the Omi ancestors, the guardians of the water, the protectors of the land and sea. The witch's eyes widened in shock as the chamber began to fill with the soft, shimmering glow of the spirits. The water around them surged, pushing the witch back. "No," the witch screamed, her form beginning to dissolve into the depths. "You cannot stop me. I am the sea." But Arya's voice was steady, her heart filled with the strength of generations before her. "You may be the sea," Arya said firmly, "but I am its daughter. And it's time for the ocean to remember who it truly belongs to." The witch's shrieks faded into the water, the ocean finally beginning to quiet. The spirits of the Omi ancestors rose higher, lifting the darkness from the chamber. But Kibu was still trapped in the depths. Arya's heart clenched. She had freed the ocean, but now she had to save the men she loved. Arya stood at the edge of the vast, endless water, her heart pounding as the last echoes of the witch's shrieks faded into the distance. The sea was still, but her own mind was swirling. She had felt the witch's power weaken, but the deeper she reached into the ocean's depths to pull Kibu to safety, the more she could feel the weight of his struggle pulling her back. The chamber they stood in was now eerily silent, the glow of the Omi ancestors still faintly shimmering around her. The spirits seemed to watch her, a silent reminder of the bond she had just reforged with the ocean, with her bloodline, and with the sea itself. But that bond was not yet whole. Not as long as Kibu remained trapped. Arya's breath quickened as she glanced down into the dark water, her eyes narrowing. She could still feel Kibu's presence, faint but undeniable, as though he were calling to her. The ocean was pulling him down, deeper, further, trying to claim him as its own. "Kibu!" Arya shouted, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Kibu, where are you? Answer me." Her words rippled through the water, but the silence remained. Her heart twisted. He was there, she knew it. But the connection between them had been severed, distorted by the witch's dark magic. And yet, a part of her heart, deep down, felt something else. A pull. The ocean was speaking to her in ways she couldn't understand. It wasn't just Kibu that the sea was calling to. It was her. Before Arya could react, the water around her began to churn. She stumbled back, her feet slipping against the slick stones beneath her, as the ocean roared to life, its waves rising higher and higher. It wasn't the furious storm that had nearly swallowed them before, but it was a warning. The sea was alive, shifting, awakening. And Arya could feel it, every drop, every wave. It was calling her back home. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the water's pull wash over her, its coldness seeping into her very bones. She wasn't afraid anymore. The witch's curse had been broken, but there was more to her connection with the sea than she had ever realized. It wasn't just the blood of the Omi family that tied her to the water, it was something deeper, something ancient. The spirits of her ancestors, now visible in their full glory, circled around her like a protective shield. Their faces were serene but filled with determination. They were with her, guiding her. Arya took a deep breath and closed her eyes, reaching into the depths of her own magic. The ocean was no longer a stranger. It was part of her. She could feel its rhythm, the pulse of the tides, the whisper of the currents. The sea's energy was in her veins, and for the first time, she understood it. She understood that her purpose was not just to fight the ocean or run from it, but to return to it. To balance the forces of land and sea. "Come back to me, Kibu," she whispered, her voice trembling with both fear and hope. "I will save you." Without thinking, she stepped forward into the water, feeling the waves rise up to meet her. It was a strange sensation, like the ocean was both embracing her and testing her, pulling her further into its depths, daring her to give in. But Arya didn't falter. She plunged into the water, her body moving with the grace of the waves, each stroke guiding her closer to Kibu. The water parted around her, and the swirling currents slowed as if they were guiding her path. She could feel his presence now, much stronger than before. His energy was tangled with the sea, wrapped up in the magic of his bloodline. The bond between them, that connection they had forged, was not just love. It was deeper. It was as if their souls were tied to the same current of life. Ahead, the darkness of the deep water began to lift, and Arya saw him. Kibu's body was floating in the water, unconscious, his form glowing faintly with a bluish light. His skin shimmered, like the surface of the sea at dawn, reflecting the magic of the water. But there was a darkness to him now, a shadow clinging to his body, a remnant of the witch's curse. Arya's heart ached. She reached out toward him, her hand brushing his shoulder, sending a wave of warmth through her fingers. The bond between them surged, and she felt his energy pulse like a heartbeat, fragile and faint. "Kibu," she whispered, her voice hoarse as she gently shook him. "Wake up. Please, wake up." For a moment, there was no response. Then, slowly, his eyelids fluttered open. His eyes were clouded, his pupils dilated as he looked around in confusion. "Arya." Kibu's voice was weak, barely a whisper. Where am I?" "You're safe," Arya said softly, her hands still on his shoulders. "You're with me. The witch is gone. The curse is broken." Kibu blinked, his gaze unfocused. His expression was distant, as though he were trying to piece together a dream. "The curse, it's not gone. I feel it. The ocean, it's still pulling at me." Arya's heart twisted. She had hoped that the curse had been broken for good, that he would be free now. But the truth was different. The sea had always claimed him, and now he was tied to it more than ever. But that wasn't all. As Arya held him, she could feel the ocean's power resonating through him, like a current running beneath the surface of his skin. The sea had always spoken to him, even before they had met. And now, it seemed that the connection was deeper than either of them had realized. "I don't know how much longer I can fight this," Kibu murmured, his voice trembling. "The sea, it's calling to me. It's telling me I'm part of it. That I belong to it." Arya shook her head, her hands tightening on his shoulders. "No. You are not just the ocean's servant, Kibu. You're my love, my partner. You belong to yourself." Kibu looked up at her, his eyes filled with doubt. "But what if I can't control it? What if the sea never lets me go?" Arya's heart ached, but she held his gaze firmly. "We will fight it together. Whatever the ocean wants, we'll face it together. You are not alone." A faint light flickered in Kibu's eyes, the first spark of hope she had seen since he had been dragged into the depths. Slowly, cautiously, he reached out and took her hand, his grip trembling but strong. "Together," he whispered. The water around them seemed to calm, as though responding to their newfound unity. The sea wasn't just a force of nature. It was a reflection of them. And as they held each other, Arya could feel it, the promise that together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead, whether in the depths of the ocean or in the challenges that came with their love. The sea was vast, ancient, and powerful, but Arya knew this, no matter what, she and Kibu would navigate its waters side by side. The silence of the ocean around them was deafening. The waters, which had once been angry and tumultuous, now felt still and heavy, as if holding their breath. Arya and Kibu remained in the embrace of the sea, their fingers intertwined, the bond between them unspoken but undeniable. The glow of the ocean's magic pulsed softly beneath the surface, a constant reminder of the forces that bound them both to this vast, mysterious world. Arya could feel the weight of the sea's ancient power pressing against her, as if it were testing her resolve. The ocean had always been a part of her, part of the Omi bloodline, a gift and a curse. But Kibu was different. His connection to the sea was far more complex. The pull he felt, the voices that called to him from the depths, were not just echoes. They were a part of who he was, who he had always been. Arya's heart ached as she gazed at him, his face pale, eyes clouded with the struggle of his internal battle. The curse had not been fully broken, not for him. And now, as the waves settled around them, she knew they had to face a truth neither of them wanted to acknowledge. "Do you feel it, Kibu?" Arya whispered, her voice trembling. "The sea, it's not letting go. It's like the curse is still inside you, still pulling at you. Kibu's gaze met hers, his expression conflicted. I know. I can feel it. It's like I'm being torn between two worlds, between you and the sea. But no matter how hard I try to push it away, it always finds me. Arya bit her lip, trying to suppress the rising panic in her chest. The sea had always been a part of her, but she hadn't truly understood the full weight of its power until now. It was a force that couldn't be easily ignored. And now, it was claiming Kibu in ways she couldn't protect him from. We can't fight it forever, can we? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The ocean, it's asking something from us. Something we don't understand. Kibu closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. I don't know. I don't even know what it wants. But it's clear to me now, it's been a part of me all along. This curse, this connection, it's not something I can run from. Arya's chest tightened. The truth was sinking in, harder and faster with each passing moment. They were both bound to the sea, but in different ways. Kibu's lineage, his bloodline, was woven into the very fabric of the ocean's magic. And now, because of their love, the sea was demanding something from both of them, a price she wasn't sure they could pay. If the sea demands something from us, Arya's voice faltered. What is it willing to take? And are we willing to give it? Kibu shook his head, his eyes dark with the weight of his thoughts. I don't know. But I know one thing, if we don't face it now, it will never stop pulling at us. It will never stop taking. The water around them began to ripple again, gently this time, as though reacting to their words. Arya's skin tingled as the current shifted beneath her. She glanced around, her heart pounding. Something was changing, something was awakening. Suddenly, a voice broke through the silence. It was a whisper at first, too soft to understand, but it grew louder with each passing second. Arya. The sound of her name, whispered on the tide, echoed through her mind. She turned quickly, looking for the source, but there was nothing. Only the endless stretch of water. And then the voice came again. Arya, you must listen. The voice was familiar. It was like the voices she had heard in her dreams, the ones that had warned her of the blood price, the ones that had once seemed so distant. The spirits of her ancestors. This time, they were calling to her directly. She closed her eyes and let the voice fill her mind, listening intently, waiting for the message to become clear. You have broken the witch's curse, the voice continued, stronger now. But the ocean has its own rules, its own demands. The bond between you and the sea cannot be undone. Kibu's bloodline is tied to the depths. The price is still to be paid. Arya's heart skipped a beat. What price? She asked, her voice trembling. What must we give to break the bond? The sea demands balance, the voice answered, its tone filled with sorrow. To keep peace between land and sea, a sacrifice must be made. It has always been so. Arya's breath caught in her throat. A sacrifice, she echoed. Who must be sacrificed? The voice grew faint, as though it were fading. The one who carries the ocean's blood, the one who is both land and sea. Arya's chest tightened with the realization. She turned to Kibu, who was now staring at her, his expression unreadable. His lips parted, but no words came. He seemed to understand too. The ocean was not asking for them both. It was asking for Kibu. The sea's ancient law demanded his blood. The blood of a royal oceanic family could never truly be free of the sea's claim. No, Arya whispered, her voice breaking. No, Kibu. It can't be you. You don't have to. But Kibu's face was pale, his eyes distant. Arya, the ocean is right. My blood has always been tied to the sea. I can feel it now, more than ever. The curse, the bond, it's part of who I am. Tears welled up in Arya's eyes. You don't have to die, Kibu. You're not a sacrifice. But Kibu shook his head. It's not about dying, Arya. It's about balance. The ocean needs balance. It always has. The sea's voice returned, echoing in Arya's mind. Only by giving what is owed will peace return. Only by completing the sacrifice can the curse be lifted forever. Kibu turned to Arya, his expression softening. Arya, I love you. But I cannot escape this. This is the price of my bloodline. Arya's world seemed to collapse around her. The ocean, the very thing that had once been her enemy, was now calling for the men she loved. Her heart screamed in protest. How could she let this happen? How could she choose between Kibu and the sea? I will find another way, Arya promised, her voice firm despite the tears threatening to fall. I won't let you become a sacrifice. But Kibu's gaze was resolute. Arya, sometimes, we don't have a choice. Sometimes, the sea takes what it needs. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The water around them seemed to hold its breath as well, waiting for their decision. The pull of the ocean was too strong. But Arya refused to believe that this was their fate, that love could be undone by a rule older than time itself. She would find a way. She had to. The waves were calm now, the stillness of the sea unnerving in its quiet. The water around Arya and Kibu shimmered, almost like it was waiting for something, for a choice to be made. The ocean's pulse was steady, relentless. Arya felt it in her chest, a tug at her heart, pulling her in two directions at once, towards the men she loved and the ancient laws that demanded his blood. Kibu stood beside her, his face pale, but there was a quiet strength in his eyes. He was no longer the uncertain prince she had met months ago. The sea had claimed him long before they had met. And now, it was asking for its price. Arya couldn't accept it. Not without a fight. But the battle within her heart was fierce. How could she love him and let him go at the same time? I won't lose you, Kibu, Arya said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. I won't. Kibu turned to face her, his eyes searching hers, full of pain and love. Arya, you don't understand. The sea isn't just a part of me. It's my lineage. It's my blood. I can't escape it. If I don't give what it demands, it will tear me apart. I'll lose myself to it. Arya reached out to touch his arm, her fingers trembling. But you're not just the ocean's servant, Kibu. You're my love. You're a man with a heart, a soul. You belong to me as much as I belong to you. I belong to you, Kibu whispered, his voice breaking, but I also belong to the sea. We both do. This isn't just about us. It's about the balance between land and sea. If I resist, the curse won't just claim me, it'll destroy everything we've fought for. The land will suffer. Your family, the Omi bloodline, the river. All of it. Arya swallowed hard, the truth of his words weighing heavily on her. She had always known that the ocean had its demands, but she hadn't fully understood how deep the bond ran. The curse, the sacrifice, it wasn't just a price for Kibu. It was a price for peace. Then we'll find another way, she insisted, the desperation rising in her chest. I don't care what the ocean wants. We can find a way to stop this, to break this bond without losing you. Kibu's eyes softened, but there was a sadness in them that made Arya's heart ache. Arya, sometimes there is no other way. Sometimes, we have to face the cost of our bloodlines. We can't change what's already been set in motion. Tears filled Arya's eyes as she shook her head, refusing to believe him. The ocean was powerful, yes, but it was not invincible. If they fought together, surely they could overcome it. But as she gazed into Kibu's eyes, she saw the truth in his face. He had already accepted his fate, and yet, he was willing to fight for her, for them, for their love. The sea's pulse seemed to quicken, responding to their turmoil. Arya could feel it, the pressure building around them. She could sense the ocean's watchful eye, waiting for her decision. And beneath that waiting, there was a darkness, an anger, that stirred in the depths. We can't outrun the ocean, Arya, Kibu said, his voice quiet but resolute. But we can face it together. If I must give what is required, then at least I will not face it alone. The words hit Arya like a wave, crashing over her and leaving her breathless. She closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the weight of the decision before her. The choice was hers, but it wasn't a choice between Kibu and the sea. It was a choice between love and sacrifice, between peace and rebellion. What would the ocean want from them? Was Kibu right? Was this the only way to restore balance? She stepped away from Kibu, her heart heavy. The ocean's magic still swirled around them, a living thing, an ancient force. But what was it asking for? What was the price? Suddenly, a voice called out to her, this time not from the sea, but from the depths of her own soul. The voice of her grandmother, the ancient spirit who had guided her through her bloodline's legacy. Arya, the voice was soft, but clear. The sea will always demand what it is owed. But you can break its chains. The blood price, it is not always paid with death. The balance can be restored, but only if you understand its true cost. Arya's heart skipped a beat. Her grandmother's voice. It was a whisper, but it was more powerful than anything she had ever felt before. She turned, looking into the water. The sea shimmered beneath her, the depths swirling in response to her thoughts. What do you mean, grandmother? Arya asked, her voice a fragile whisper. How can I break the curse? How can I save Kibu? The price is not always a life, her grandmother's voice responded. The blood price is the sacrifice of what is most precious to you. It is a giving, not of life, but of freedom. You must decide what you are willing to give up to keep him. The ocean will not be satisfied by a simple offering. It demands true sacrifice. Arya's chest tightened as the truth began to sink in. The sacrifice wasn't about Kibu dying, it was about something much deeper. Something that could tear them apart in ways they couldn't even imagine. What would she have to give up to break the curse? Was she prepared to make that choice? I will do anything, Arya whispered, her voice trembling with determination. I will give whatever is needed to save Kibu. To save us. The sea seemed to respond, a gentle current rippling beneath her feet. But Arya knew it wasn't over yet. There was still more to this, more to uncover. Her grandmother's words rang in her ears, the ocean demands true sacrifice. What was she truly willing to give? Kibu stepped beside her, his hand warm against hers. Arya, he said softly, you don't have to do this. We don't have to face this alone. We can find another way. But Arya shook her head, her eyes fixed on the water. I will not let you go, Kibu. But if the sea demands something from me to keep you, then I will face it. The tension in the air thickened, the sea holding its breath, as though waiting for her decision. But Arya knew, deep down, that the path she was about to walk would change everything. And with that knowledge, she took Kibu's hand, her heart full of resolve. Together, they would face whatever came next. Together, they would find the cost of true freedom. The sea had always been a place of mystery, of magic, of power that none could truly understand. Yet, standing at the edge of the water, Arya felt as though she was about to uncover its deepest secret, the heart of the ocean itself. The water, so vast and unknowable, seemed to pulse in response to her thoughts, to her determination. Kibu's grip on her hand tightened, his presence a steady anchor in the storm of emotions swirling inside her. Despite his own inner conflict, he stood beside her, silent but resolute. He was ready to face whatever price the sea demanded, just as she was. They had made their choice, and now there was no turning back. Are you sure about this? Kibu asked quietly, his voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid the sea might hear. Once we step into those waters, there may be no way to return. Arya nodded, though her heart was heavy with uncertainty. I have no choice. The ocean has already made its demands. I can feel it, Kibu. It's like the very air is thick with its magic. The only way to break the curse is to face it directly. We have to find the heart of the ocean. The place where the balance between land and sea can be restored. Kibu frowned. But how do we even find it? The heart of the ocean is just a legend, something whispered about by ancient spirits. No one knows where it is, or what it truly is. I don't know, Arya admitted. But the sea is calling to us. It won't let us go until we answer. We have to trust that it will guide us, even if we don't understand why. The The sea seemed to respond, its waves gently lapping at the shore, as though it had heard her words. But it wasn't just the sea that had noticed their presence. The moment they made the decision to walk this path, Arya felt the weight of something else, the ancient forces of the sea witches, the ones who had once tried to destroy the Omi bloodline. It was as if they were watching, waiting for the moment when Arya and Kibu would make their move. "Do you think Mariah knows what we're doing?" Arya asked, her brow furrowing. The thought of Lady Mariah and her hidden ties to the sea witches made Arya uneasy. She had already tried to manipulate Kibu, tried to keep him from the truth. If Mariah knew they were searching for the heart of the ocean, there was no telling what she might do to stop them. "I don't know," Kibu replied, his voice distant. "But I know that the sea witches won't let us walk away so easily. They've always been part of the ocean's darker side. If they sense what we're doing, they'll come for us." Arya shuddered, the chill of the sea creeping up her spine. The thought of facing the witches again, especially after all they had been through, made her blood run cold. But she couldn't let fear stop her. If they didn't find the heart of the ocean, if they didn't break the curse, the balance between land and sea would be destroyed. It wasn't just Kibu's life at stake, it was the lives of everyone they cared about, the peace between the two realms. Together, they stepped into the water, the cool waves brushing against their legs. The moment Arya's toes touched the surface, she felt the shift. It wasn't just the water around her, it was the very fabric of the world itself, pulling her into something deeper, something older. The ocean was alive in a way she had never fully understood before. "Stay close," Kibu said, his voice low but firm. "If the sea pulls us under, we need to stay together." Arya nodded, her heart racing as the water began to swirl around their ankles, then their knees. It wasn't just the water that was moving. It was as though the sea itself had awakened, its ancient magic reaching for them, testing them. The waves became stronger, crashing against them with more force. Arya gasped as a powerful current tugged at her feet, trying to pull her deeper into the ocean. She reached out for Kibu's hand, but the current was stronger now, more relentless. The sea was no longer just a gentle force, it was a living entity, alive with hunger and power. "Hold on!" Kibu shouted, his voice barely audible over the rising wind and the crashing waves. "We have to keep moving forward." Arya clung to him, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the water growing colder, colder than she had ever experienced, as though they were descending into the very heart of the ocean itself. As they moved deeper, the water seemed to shift, becoming darker and more oppressive. The air grew heavy, thick with an ancient magic that hummed with power. And then, in the distance, Arya saw something, an ethereal glow, faint but unmistakable. It was like a beacon in the dark, drawing them toward it. "The heart," Arya whispered, her voice full of awe and fear. Kibu nodded, his face grim. "This is it. We're close. But be careful, Arya. There's no telling what we'll find down there." They continued to move toward the light, the water growing colder with each step. The glow became brighter, revealing an ancient coral structure, massive and intricate, like the skeleton of a great sea creature. It was alive with magic, its roots stretching deep into the ocean floor. Arya could feel its power, its ancient energy vibrating through the water. "This is it," Kibu breathed. "This is the heart of the ocean." But before they could reach it, a dark shadow loomed above them. Arya's heart skipped a beat as she looked up, her blood running cold. It was a sea witch, a figure cloaked in dark water, her eyes glowing like pools of molten gold. "No," Kibu whispered. "It's Mariah." Lady Mariah descended from the depths, her presence suffocating, her eyes locked onto Kibu with a hunger Arya had never seen before. "You're too late," Mariah hissed, her voice like the crashing of thunder. "The ocean will never let you take its heart. It belongs to the sea, not to you." Arya stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. "I won't let you stop us, Mariah. The sea may have claimed you, but it will not claim us. We have a right to the peace between land and sea." Mariah's laughter echoed through the water, cold and mocking. "Peace," she spat. "There can be no peace while the blood of the Omi flows. The sea demands its due." With that, Mariah raised her hand, and the water around them began to churn violently, spinning in a whirlpool that threatened to swallow them whole. "No!" Arya shouted, her voice breaking. She reached for Kibu, but the current was too strong. The sea was no longer just a force, it was alive, angry, and the witches had awoken its fury. In that moment, Arya realized the truth. The heart of the ocean wasn't just a place. It was a living thing, a beating heart of the sea itself. And it wasn't just the witches who had a claim on it, it was the ocean's very soul. Arya's pulse quickened as she fought against the pull of the water, reaching for Kibu's hand once more. This was the moment when everything would change. Would they choose to break the curse, to defy the ocean's will? Or would they have to pay the ultimate price for the peace they so desperately sought? The whirlpool grew stronger, spinning faster, its dark waters reaching toward Arya and Kibu like the gaping jaws of a sea monster. The force was overwhelming, pulling them apart, threatening to drag them into the depths of the ocean's forgotten heart. Arya's fingers grazed Kibu's hand for a fleeting moment, but the current was too powerful. She felt herself slipping, sinking into the churning abyss, her body twisting in the water like a leaf caught in a storm. "Stay with me." Kibu's voice reached her through the noise of the storm, desperate and frantic. He was struggling, too, trying to fight against the pull of the water, but it was like trying to swim against the tide of a great flood. Arya. The sea, it seemed, had a mind of its own. It was angry. The ocean wasn't just an element, it was a force that had watched the world for centuries, a force that had shaped the land and the lives of those who lived upon it. The ocean was not forgiving. And now, it had awakened, furious at their intrusion. The figure of Lady Mariah stood in the center of the whirlpool, her body moving with the grace of the water around her. Her eyes were glowing, more molten than ever, her mouth twisted in a cruel smile. "You think you can take what belongs to the sea?" Mariah's voice was like 1,000 whispers, cold and venomous. "The blood of the Omi has always been tied to the ocean. You cannot break that bond, no matter how hard you fight." Arya gritted her teeth, pushing through the raging water, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and fury. She couldn't let Mariah win, not now, not when they were so close to breaking the curse, to finding the peace that could save them all. She had to reach the heart of the ocean, no matter the cost. "I don't care what you say," Arya spat, her voice barely carrying over the crashing waves. "I won't let you destroy everything. This peace belongs to both the land and the sea. And I won't let you take it from us." Mariah's laugh was like the sound of cracking ice. "You think you can defy the sea? You are nothing but a child of water. The ocean will always claim you, Arya. You cannot escape it. Your bloodline, your legacy, it will never be free." Kibu, his face stricken with determination, finally broke free from the pull of the current. He swam toward Arya, his movements swift and fluid as he grabbed her hand, pulling her back toward him. The whirlpool seemed to hesitate, as though momentarily confused by their unity. "I won't let you do this to her," Kibu shouted, his voice full of resolve. "The ocean may have claimed me, but I choose to fight for my love, for our future. I choose to defy the curse." The sea around them responded with a violent surge, as if angry at Kibu's words. The whirlpool spun faster, the water colder, deeper. Arya could feel the pressure on her chest, the pull of the ocean's magic threatening to crush her. But in that moment, something shifted. Arya felt it, the ocean's pulse, the heartbeat of the sea. It wasn't just the magic of the water that was swirling around them. It was something ancient, something alive. She could feel it now, like a part of her own soul, deep within the currents, in the deepest reaches of the ocean's heart. Kibu looked at her, his eyes filled with fear and hope. "Arya," he whispered, "do you feel it? The ocean, it's calling us. The heart of the ocean, it's waiting for us." Arya nodded, her mind racing. She could feel the call, too. It was as if the ocean was speaking to her, urging her to move forward. It wasn't just about them anymore. It was about the balance, about the world they both lived in. "We have to go to it," Arya said, her voice steady despite the fear. "The heart of the ocean is not just a place, it's a decision. It's the choice we make to bring peace, to break the curse." Kibu looked at her, his eyes wide. Arya, you don't mean. I do, she said firmly. The ocean will only be satisfied with a true sacrifice, not of life, but of choice. The heart of the ocean is the key. We must decide together. Will we fight the ocean and risk destroying both our worlds? Or will we give it what it wants, so that balance can be restored? Kibu hesitated, his gaze flicking between her and the swirling waters. But the price, he swallowed, fear flashing in his eyes. What if the price is too much? I don't know, Arya admitted. But I do know this, if we don't try, if we don't face this, then everything we've fought for will be lost. With that, Arya tugged at his hand, and they swam toward the glowing heart in the distance, the pulsing light growing brighter with each stroke. The water seemed to part before them, guiding them like a path through a dark forest, a tunnel of light leading them to the heart of the ocean. And then, they were there. Before them stood an ancient coral structure, rising like a cathedral from the ocean floor. Its walls shimmered with the light of the glowing heart, a crystal at its core that pulsed with the rhythm of the sea itself. The heart of the ocean was no longer a legend. It was real, alive, and it was calling to them. The sea witches were no longer present, Mariah had disappeared, lost to the ocean's fury. But the heart of the ocean was waiting. The pulse of the water echoed through the currents, and Arya and Kibu felt it in their very bones, a deep, ancient magic that could not be ignored. You've come, a voice echoed from the depths, ancient and wise. It was not Mariah's voice, nor was it a voice from the land. It was the voice of the ocean itself, the voice of the deep. You stand before the heart of the ocean, the source of balance and power. The price must be paid. Arya and Kibu knelt before the heart, their hearts beating in time with the ocean's pulse. The magic in the water seemed to wrap around them, a force beyond their understanding. But they did not resist. They knew now that this was the moment when the choice would be made. Speak your bargain, the ocean's voice boomed, its power reverberating in the water around them. What will you give to restore balance? Arya and Kibu looked at each other, their love stronger than ever. There was no turning back now. Whatever the ocean demanded, they would face it together. I will give everything, Arya whispered, her voice trembling with determination. I will give the peace the ocean demands. But in return, let the land and sea be one. Let there be no more bloodshed, no more curses. Let there be peace. The water seemed to still for a moment, the ocean holding its breath. And then, the heart of the ocean began to glow even brighter, its pulse matching the rhythm of Arya's heartbeat. The ocean had heard her. And it was ready to make its bargain. The heart of the ocean pulsed with a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through Arya's chest, echoing in her very soul. She could feel the weight of the ocean's power pressing against her, and in that moment, it seemed as though time itself had slowed. The water around them swirled, calm yet alive with the force of ancient magic. The voice of the sea had spoken its bargain, but Arya still felt a chill running through her. The price of peace, the cost of breaking the curse, was yet to be revealed. Arya and Kibu remained kneeling before the glowing heart, its light warm and cold all at once. They could hear the sounds of the sea, the rhythmic crashing of waves, the cries of distant sea creatures, and the ever-present hum of the ocean's song. But it was more than just sound. It was a language, a communication older than anything they had ever known. The ocean's voice reverberated through the water, deep and thunderous. You have asked for peace, and the ocean has heard. But peace comes at a cost, as all things do. The bloodline of the Omi will no longer be cursed, but one will be chosen to carry the weight of the sea's power. Arya's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? What will happen to us? She asked, her voice trembling. You said peace, but... The water around them surged as if the ocean was taking a breath. The heart's glow flickered, and the voice continued, now softer, as though it were speaking directly into their minds. The power of the sea is ancient and eternal. It must be bound to a soul, a vessel strong enough to carry the tide. The one who is chosen will be the bridge between the sea and the land. They will walk in both worlds, carrying the weight of the ocean's magic and the burden of its peace. Kibu's eyes widened in realization, his grip tightening on Arya's hand. No, he whispered, fear creeping into his voice. You can't mean. Arya's mind raced. She understood. The price of peace was not a simple sacrifice, not the spilling of blood, but the offering of herself, her very essence. The sea had claimed her, just as it had claimed every daughter of the House of Omi before her, and now it would demand something even greater. The ocean's voice echoed once more, this time with the weight of 1,000 storms. One of you must take the heart's burden. Only then will the balance be restored. Arya's heart beat faster. I won't let it be Kibu, she said, her voice firm. I am the one who made this choice. The sea chose me. I will carry this burden, if it means saving everything. Kibu shook his head violently, his face pale. No, Arya. You can't. This isn't what we agreed to. We came here for peace, not to lose you to the sea. There has to be another way. But Arya could feel it now, the pulse of the ocean's power deep inside her. It was calling to her, and it was clear that the choice had already been made. The ocean was testing her, asking her if she was ready to embrace the magic that would bind her to both land and sea. I'm ready, she whispered, more to herself than to Kibu. I will carry the ocean's power, if it means no one else has to suffer. If it means there will finally be peace. Kibu's face contorted with anguish. Arya, please, don't. I can't lose you. The ocean's pulse deepened, its rhythm becoming more pronounced, as if responding to their words. The light from the heart began to glow brighter, and Arya felt something shift inside her, like the ocean itself was choosing her, claiming her as its own. Arya could feel the power building within her, a force that she had never experienced before. It was as if the very ocean was alive within her veins, filling her with its strength, its energy, and its ancient magic. She could feel the depths of the sea, the secrets it held, and the burden of its power. It was overwhelming, and yet, at the same time, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. The heart of the ocean pulsed again, this time in perfect harmony with her own heartbeat. The water around her began to swirl, forming a protective circle around her and Kibu. The sea was accepting her decision. She had chosen to carry the burden, to become the bridge between two worlds. I accept, Arya said aloud, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. I will bear the ocean's power. I will carry the peace. The ocean's voice was soft now, almost gentle, as though acknowledging her sacrifice. The sea's gift is yours, Arya of Omi. You will walk between the worlds, but know this, the price of peace is never without cost. You will no longer be able to live as you once did. The ocean's power will be yours to command, but it will also demand from you. You will be bound to the sea, and the sea will be bound to you. Arya closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the ocean's promise. She could already feel the power flowing through her, her legs began to shimmer with the marks of the ocean, glowing softly like the waves under moonlight. Her skin tingled with the magic of the sea, and she knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. Kibu looked at her with tears in his eyes. Arya, I know, she whispered, her voice full of love and sorrow. I know, Kibu. But this is the only way. This is the only way to save everything we fought for. For a long moment, they stood there in silence, the water around them calm again, as if the ocean itself had accepted their decision. The heart of the ocean continued to pulse softly, its light growing more faint as the power within Arya's body settled into a steady rhythm. You must go now, the ocean's voice whispered, softer than before, like a lullaby. The realms are balanced. The peace has been restored. But remember this, Arya of Omi, the ocean is never fully tamed. It will always call to you. It will always need you. And you must never forget your place between the worlds. Arya nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of the ocean's magic. She felt Kibu's hand on her shoulder, and for a moment, she drew strength from him. No matter what the ocean had claimed, no matter the burden she now bore, she would not be alone. Let's go home, she whispered to Kibu, her voice filled with quiet resolve. And together, they swam toward the surface, toward the world they had left behind, the world that had almost slipped away, but now, because of Arya's sacrifice, would have the peace it had longed for. The sea shimmered with strange light as Arya and Kibu broke the surface. It was night, but not dark. The moon above them was round and swollen, bathing the world in silver. Stars blinked lazily in the heavens, and the tide rolled gently beneath them like a sleeping giant. But something had changed. The ocean felt quieter, gentler. Arya gasped for breath as her head rose above water, her body still aglow with sea markings. Each line pulsed softly, like glowing roots stretching across her skin. Around her wrists, ocean runes shimmered. The glow in her eyes dimmed gradually, but the magic remained within her. It would always remain. Kibu emerged beside her, his arm reaching instinctively for her. You're glowing less," he whispered. "I still feel it," Arya replied, her voice calm but deeper now, like it carried water within it. "But it doesn't hurt anymore. It's part of me now." They floated there, silent in the stillness, until a sound broke through the night, a horn from the coastline. "The palace," Kibu said, turning toward the shore. "They're looking for us." Arya nodded. "Then let's not keep them waiting." They swam to the shore together, the moon guiding them, the ocean gently pushing them forward as if blessing the return of its chosen daughter. The coastal village of Ilu Amadin had been holding its breath for hours. Nobles had gathered in the outer courtyard. Queen Eroya paced before the sacred mirror. And deep within the temple, Arya's mother knelt with her face pressed to the earth. "She is the last of my daughters," she whispered to the gods. "Do not take her too." Just then, a wave of energy shimmered across the village. The sacred pots in the shrine trembled. The mirrors fogged. And in the west, near the rocky path by the sea, two figures approached. When Arya stepped onto land again, silence fell across the crowd. No one moved. No one even breathed. She stood tall, her dress soaked and clinging to her glowing skin, the ancient marks of the sea clear for all to see. Beside her, Prince Kibu looked not like a lost lover, but like a man reborn. "Arya," her mother whispered, stepping forward, trembling. "My child, you're alive." "I am," Arya said. Her voice carried across the crowd like music and thunder all at once. "And so is the peace between land and sea." Her mother clutched her heart. "You carry it now, don't you?" Arya nodded. "Yes. The curse is broken, Mama. There will be no more sacrifices." A gasp ran through the crowd. Every daughter of Omi will still feel the sea's call. But none will be taken. None will die to keep the balance. "I am the last chosen." "But how?" someone whispered. "What did you give in return?" Arya looked down at her glowing hands. "Myself. My freedom. My time. I belong to both the land and the sea now. I will serve as the bridge between the two, forever." A long silence followed. Then, slowly, Queen Eroya stepped forward from the palace steps. Her royal blue robes trailed behind her, heavy with beads and feathers. But her voice, when she spoke, was softer than anyone had heard it before. "The House of Omi has paid its price," she said. "And Arya has rewritten the curse with her sacrifice. Let no man or woman speak ill of the sea again. Let her choice be honored for all time." She bowed. And one by one, every noble, every servant, every villager followed. Heads lowered. Knees bent. The crowd bowed not just to a girl, but to a legend in the making. Arya held Kibu's hand tightly. "What now?" he whispered. "We wait," Arya answered. "The sea is quiet, for now. But it will speak again. And when it does, I will listen." The witches stir. Far away, hidden in the caves where black waters licked ancient stone, the coven of the sea witches gathered. Lady Mariah sat by the obsidian pool, her silver eyes narrowed as she stared into the reflection. A vision flickered, Arya, glowing with ocean runes, standing tall on the shore. "She did it," one of the witches hissed. "She bound the sea's heart to her soul." "The curse is broken," said another. "The Omi girl changed the deal." Mariah didn't answer immediately. Her fingers swirled the pool water until it turned dark. "She has power now," she said at last. "Power we could not control. But the ocean is old, and it remembers those who tamper with its rhythm. "Should we attack?" asked a young witch, eager and trembling. Mariah turned, her gaze like ice. "No," she said. "Not yet. But she is too strong now. The sea favors her. But nothing lasts forever. Even the sea must change tides. Let her think she has won peace. Let the people cheer. Let the girl believe she is safe." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Because when she forgets to fear the deep, that is when we strike." The witches began to chant in the dark. Magic stirred once more. And far away, beneath the still waters of the ocean, something ancient opened its eyes. The moon had waned, and 3 suns had passed since Arya returned from the sea. The village of Ilu Amadan began to breathe again. Children ran along the riverbanks, women returned to the dye pits, and the royal drummers resumed their rhythms. But Arya could not sleep. Every night, she heard it, the sound of the sea calling her name. It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was like a soft song inside a shell, echoing inside her bones. Arya. The voice always came in the same way, just before dawn, when the mist rolled in from the water and the world was quiet. She would sit up in her bed, her body slick with sweat, and feel the marks on her arms flickering again with pale blue light. Kibu had noticed too. Though he said nothing, he often held her hand tighter when they walked past the river. His eyes, once full of joy, now carried questions. One morning, as the roosters crowed and the market women began to light their cooking fires, Arya walked alone to the edge of the sea. She stood barefoot in the cool sand, looking out at the water. It looked peaceful. Too peaceful. Then she heard it. Not a voice this time, but a hum. Arya turned, and her eyes fell on something lying at the base of the sacred palm tree. It was a shell. But not an ordinary shell. It glowed faintly, with a shimmer like sunlight underwater. The edges were lined with carvings that looked like tiny waves. And at its center was a tiny symbol, the same one that had appeared on Arya's hand when she first transformed. She knelt and picked it up. The moment her fingers touched it, her ears filled with sound. She waits. She watches. She remembers. Arya stumbled backward. The voice was not from the air, it was inside her head. Inside the shell. She clutched it tightly, heart pounding. The voice faded. The shell went still. Then she heard footsteps behind her. "Are you all right?" It was Kibu. Arya turned, slipping the shell into the fold of her waistcloth. "Yes," she said, trying to smile. "Just thinking." He walked up beside her, looking out at the waves. "You hear it too, don't you?" She didn't answer. Kibu looked down. "I've started hearing it again. The voices I told you about. They're louder now." She looked at him sharply. "What do they say?" They say we've only started something. That the sea has given us peace, yes, but it also gave us a question. A secret. Something deeper." Arya took his hand. "We need to tell the elders." "No," Kibu said quickly. "Not yet. If they know you're still connected to the sea, they might panic. Some already whisper that the curse was never truly broken. That you've become the sea's servant, not its savior." Arya swallowed. The air smelled like salt and rain. "What do we do?" she asked. "We learn," Kibu said. "We follow the whispers. We find the truth before the witches do." Meanwhile, in the palace courtyard, Queen Arroya sat on her ivory stool, her hands folded on her lap, her face deep in thought. Lady Imba, the head of the royal seers, stood beside her, holding a small gourd filled with river stones. The queen had not asked for a reading, but Lady Imba had insisted. "The child has returned," Lady Imba said, shaking the stones gently. "But the sea never gives back what it takes." The queen did not look at her. "You believe Arya is dangerous?" "I believe she is marked," Lady Imba said, her voice low. "And those who carry the mark must be watched." "She saved us," the queen said, a little too quickly. And she brought something back with her. A quiet storm. You know this. The queen's fingers tightened around her ivory beads. Prepare the watchers, she said finally. Tell them to observe. Quietly. Lady Imba bowed. And if she begins to turn again? The queen closed her eyes. Then we do what must be done. Arya sat cross-legged in her room, the glowing shell in her lap. She had placed it on a mat of palm fibers, surrounded by river salt and 4 drops of coconut oil, just as her grandmother had once shown her in secret. The room was dark. Only a single candle flickered in the corner. She placed her palm on the shell and whispered, "Speak to me." The shell hummed. And then the voice came again. Not all witches are wicked. Not all truths are told. Go to the cave. The one with the broken tooth rock. You will find the comb of the first mother. Arya blinked. What mother? What comb? But the shell had gone silent again. She sat back, her heart racing. There was only one place in the entire coastal forest with a rock that looked like a broken tooth, a sea cave called Irosile, which the elders said no child should ever enter. It was where the sea witches once gathered. And now, it seemed, her journey was calling her there. The forest near the coast was thick with early morning mist. Trees leaned toward one another like gossiping aunties, their branches heavy with dew. Birds stayed quiet, as if they too feared what slept beneath the canopy. Arya had never come this far beyond the village before. Most children of Ilu Amadan were warned from birth, never enter the forest after sunrise. And never, never, go near the rock with the broken tooth. But today, Arya was not just a girl of Ilu Amadan. She was something else now, marked by the sea, chosen by fate, guided by a whisper inside a shell. She walked carefully, with Kibu close behind. His steps were softer than hers. His eyes darted around like he was expecting ghosts to leap from every shadow. "Are you sure this is the place?" he asked. Arya held out the shell in her palm. It glowed faintly, brighter whenever she faced east. "The shell wants us here," she said. "I don't think it would lie." Kibu chuckled nervously. Shells shouldn't talk in the first place. They continued deeper into the forest until the trees opened into a wide clearing. At the center stood a large, jagged rock jutting from the earth like a broken tooth. It was black and wet, and it hummed faintly, as if it remembered old songs. Beneath the rock was a hole, low and narrow, barely big enough for one person at a time. The entrance to the cave of Irosile. Kibu bent down. "You go first," he whispered. Arya smirked. Scared. Very. She didn't blame him. The last time anyone entered this cave, they never came back. Old tales said sea witches once danced in its depths, summoning spirits with bone flutes and blood ink. Some stories said the cave wasn't a cave at all, but a sleeping creature with 1,000 eyes and a mouth full of teeth. But Arya had learned one thing since her 16th birthday: fear never stopped the truth. She crawled inside. The stone scraped her arms, and her dress snagged on roots. But she pressed forward, the shell guiding her like a small lantern in her hand. After a few minutes, the tunnel opened into a chamber wide enough for both of them to stand. Arya lit a small oil lamp from the pouch at her waist. The light danced across the walls, and what she saw made her breath catch. The cave was covered in drawings. Not carved, but painted, with some kind of shimmering ink. Fish with wings. Women with tails of coral. A child with glowing marks on her arms standing between 2 kingdoms. And in the very center of the cave was a single stone pedestal. Upon it lay a comb. Arya stepped forward slowly. It was not an ordinary comb. It was made of polished shell, shaped like a crescent moon. On each tooth was carved a symbol. At the comb's center was a round stone, white like bone and veined with silver. Kibu frowned. "That's the comb the voice mentioned." "I think so." She picked it up gently, and the moment she did, her vision exploded with light. Flash. She saw a young girl, much like herself, swimming through black waves. Flash. A mother holding her baby near the sea, weeping, as witches danced around her. Flash. A great beast rising from the ocean, its eyes gold, its roar shaking the earth. Flash. A circle of women standing on a cliff, each wearing the same comb in their hair. Arya stumbled back, gasping. Arya. Kibu rushed to her, grabbing her shoulders. I saw them, she whispered. The first mothers. The true daughters of Omi. They weren't cursed. What do you mean? They chose the sea, Arya said. It wasn't a punishment. It was power. A gift. But someone twisted the story. Made it into fear. Made it into sacrifice. Kibu's eyes narrowed. Who? Just then, the shell pulsed again. The comb shimmered in Arya's hand. And a new voice whispered through the chamber. The house of Omi was built on a lie. The blood price was never demanded by the sea. Arya's hand trembled. Then who demanded it? She didn't need to guess. She remembered the fear in her mother's eyes. The secrets in the palace. The quiet council meetings behind closed doors. It was the royal bloodline, she whispered. The kings. The queens. The elders. They made the sacrifice a law, not a necessity. Kibu stepped back, stunned. They've been killing your people, your sisters, for generations, for nothing. For control, Arya said bitterly. If the Omi girls knew the truth, that they were meant to rule beside the sea, not be taken by it, then the palace would lose its power. Kibu was silent for a moment. Then he said, you can't keep this a secret. No, Arya agreed. But we need to be smart. If we confront them now, they'll silence us. We need allies. And proof. They both looked at the comb again. It was more than just an artifact. It was a key to history, to truth, to war. And somewhere far below the earth, something stirred. Something old and deep and angry. Arya clenched the comb in her fist. They've lied long enough, she said. It's time we rewrite the story. The morning after their journey into the Forbidden Cave, Arya felt like the air in Ilu Amadan had changed. Everything looked the same, the crimson hibiscus flowers curling in the village garden, the women singing as they beat yam, and the young boys racing goats across the dusty path. But to Arya, the colors were too bright. The laughter was too loud. The peace felt like a painted mask hiding something ugly underneath. She walked beside Kibu, her fingers still tightly wrapped around the sacred comb hidden beneath her wrapper. The shell nestled close to her chest in a small pouch, silent now but pulsing faintly with warmth. She didn't know whether it was trying to comfort her or warn her. They stopped by the river, near the oldest baobab tree in the village. It was a quiet place, where grandmothers often came to pray, where young girls once played before they turned 16 and disappeared into the sea. Arya sat on the stone ledge and dipped her feet in the water. Kibu sat beside her. We can't stay quiet for long, Kibu whispered. Lady Imba is already watching you. I know, Arya said. She smells secrets like smoke. We need someone who can help us. Someone older. Someone who won't betray us to the palace. Arya thought for a moment. Then she whispered, Mama Okani. Kibu blinked. The old herb woman who talks to birds. She was my father's friend. Before he died. Arya's voice was tight. He trusted her more than anyone. Kibu nodded slowly. All right. But we go carefully. They left the riverbank and walked through the narrow paths leading to the edge of the village, where the grass grew taller and the trees began to speak in slow whispers. Mama Okani's hut stood alone, surrounded by wild ginger and blue flowering vines. A carved wooden mask hung on her door, the kind only made by the river folk, half fish, half woman, with eyes that followed you. Arya knocked once. Nothing. She knocked again. The door creaked open slowly on its own. Kibu tensed. Arya stepped inside. The room smelled of bitter roots and river smoke. Gourds hung from the ceiling. Animal bones were arranged on the shelves beside dried herbs and feathers. At the center of the room sat Mama Okani, her gray hair wrapped in a deep blue scarf, her eyes closed in meditation. "I was waiting for you," she said without opening her eyes. Arya bowed. "Mama, I..." "Sit, child." They obeyed. Mama Okani finally opened her eyes. They were misty and pale, but sharp beneath the fog. "You went into the cave?" "Yes," Arya said. "We found the comb." Mama Okani leaned forward. "Show me." Arya slowly unwrapped the cloth and placed the comb on the floor between them. Mama Okani stared at it. Her eyes filled with tears. "It's true," she whispered. "You are the one." "The one?" Kibu asked. "The sea's chosen child. The first in many generations to break the silence. Your grandmother was the last to hold that comb. She died before she could tell the truth." Arya's throat tightened. "Why me?" Mama Okani reached out and touched Arya's forehead. Her fingers were cold and soft. "Because your father made a choice," she said. "He refused to send your sister into the sea. He defied the blood price. He believed the truth could free the Omi daughters." Arya's eyes widened. "He died because of that." Mama Okani nodded slowly. "The palace feared his knowledge. They could not allow a prince to spread such a story. So they silenced him. They said he drowned. But he didn't," Arya said softly. "He was drowned." Mama Okani took a breath. "His last words to me were, 'My daughter must know. Let her find the comb. Let her wake the sea.'" Silence fell in the hut. The wind outside began to howl. Then a new sound echoed, soft, like the chime of coral shells in water. The shell in Arya's pouch vibrated and glowed. Mama Okani's eyes lit up. "You carry the spirit shell," she whispered. "A gift from the Tide Mothers. It speaks only to the true voice of the sea." Arya pulled it out. The glow brightened, casting waves of blue light on the floor. Suddenly, the shell spoke, not in a whisper this time, but in a clear, strong voice. "The truth lies in the river's mouth, where the moon kisses the tide. Seek the silent pool. Awaken the sleeping sisters." Then it dimmed again. Kibu blinked. "The silent pool. What's that?" Mama Okani stood. "It is the ancient heart of the river. A place the palace sealed long ago. If the sea has shown it to you, then the time has come." "For what?" Arya asked. "For the daughters of Omi to rise." Arya stood too. Her body trembled, but her spirit burned with purpose. "No more fear. No more lies. I will go to the silent pool. I will find the sleeping sisters. And I will go with you," Kibu said, taking her hand. Mama Okani smiled. "You are brave, children. But remember, the truth brings war before it brings peace. The sea will test you." Arya nodded. "Let it test me. I am Omi's daughter. I will not drown." Outside, the wind carried the scent of salt and storm. The river was waking. And it was ready to speak. The wetlands at the edge of Ilu Amadan were no place for children. Even grown men avoided them. Trees grew too tall, too twisted. The mud was thick like porridge, and the air buzzed with the whispers of spirits. Frogs sang like drums, and fireflies lit up the mist like floating stars. This was the path to the silent pool. Arya moved carefully between the reeds, her feet wrapped in dried banana leaves to protect against thorns. Kibu followed behind, one hand on his dagger, the other holding a tightly wrapped satchel containing roasted yam, dried fish, and a jar of palm oil. They had left before dawn, guided by the words from the spirit shell and a cloth map drawn by Mama Okani, stitched with golden thread and old river signs passed down by the Omi ancestors. As they walked deeper into the wetlands, everything grew quieter. Even the frogs stopped singing. The trees bowed inward, like guardians keeping a secret. Arya paused. "Do you feel that?" Kibu nodded. The air feels full. They followed the narrow path until it opened into a wide clearing, and there it was. The silent pool. It was a perfect circle, nestled between mossy stones and bending trees. The water was so still it reflected the sky like a mirror. No ripples. No breeze. Just silence. And carved into the rock at its edge was a word in old script. Omi Tutu. The calm sea. Arya stepped forward. The shell in her pouch began to glow again, humming gently. Suddenly, her feet stopped moving, not because she willed them, but because the water was calling. Not with sound, but with memory. Visions flooded her mind. She saw 7 women, sisters, standing at the edge of the same pool, their faces strong and sad. Each held a comb, and each bore the glowing sea marks on her arms. They were the first daughters of Omi. They had once ruled the river freely, guiding the tides and teaching the secrets of the sea to the land folk. But fear crept in. Men grew jealous of their gifts. The palace, still new in its power, offered peace, but demanded silence. So the sisters slept. Not in death, but in waiting, sealed beneath the pool. Arya gasped and fell to her knees. Kibu caught her. "What did you see?" "They're here," she whispered. "The original daughters. The ones who first touched the sea. They're sleeping beneath this water." Kibu looked at the pool with new awe. "How do we wake them?" Arya reached for the comb. She stood and walked slowly into the pool. The water was ice cold, but it parted for her like it remembered her. When she reached the center, she lifted the comb high. Then she spoke, not with her mouth, but from her heart. "I am Arya of the house of Omi. Daughter of water, marked by tide. I seek the truth you carried. I call to you, my sleeping mothers. Wake. Wake. Wake." The water rippled. The comb began to spin in her hand, faster and faster, until it burst with a pulse of blue light. Then, the pool glowed. From its center rose a gentle mist, and within it, faint shapes appeared. Women with glowing sea-marked skin. Their hair flowed like waves. Their eyes were shut, but tears ran down their cheeks. They had been waiting. 4 centuries. For her. One opened her eyes. Her voice rang out like chimes underwater. "The silence ends today." Suddenly, the ground trembled. The trees shook. Birds took flight. The spell had been broken. The pool began to swirl, not in chaos, but like a heartbeat. Like something ancient had stirred. Like the sea had taken a breath. Then a harsh voice echoed through the trees. "There they are." Arya turned sharply. Palace guards. At least 6. Dressed in dark leather, armed with spears and nets. They had been followed. Kibu reached for his dagger. "Run!" But the water surged up around Arya, lifting her like a wave. The comb spun again, and the spirits of the sleeping sisters gathered around her, forming a glowing shield. One guard threw a net, but it disintegrated in the air. Another lunged, but the pool pushed him back with a wall of water. Arya's voice rose, filled with the strength of her ancestors. "You cannot stop this. The river remembers. The sea awakens. And we are not afraid anymore." The guards hesitated. One of them, a younger man with fear in his eyes, dropped his spear and ran. Another followed. The rest backed away, confused, unsure if they were fighting a girl or something much older. The mist cleared. The pool stilled. The vision faded, but Arya remained standing in the center, changed. Her skin shimmered faintly. Her voice felt deeper. The spirit of the first daughters had touched her. She walked out of the water, Kibu rushing to meet her. He looked at her with awe. "Arya, you're one of them now." She nodded slowly. "Not just one of them. I carry them in me now." He looked at the guards who had fled, the silence that now hung over the pool, and said, "What do we do now?" "We go back," she said, "and we tell the truth. To the people. To the palace. To every Omi girl who ever thought she had no choice. The wind picked up. Far in the distance, the ocean roared, not in anger, but in recognition. The sea was listening. And its daughters were finally awake. The news spread like wildfire. First through whispers in the wet markets of Ilu Amadan. Then through hurried talk in palm groves, between traders and drummers, and into the ears of the weavers, the priests, and finally the palace servants. Arya, daughter of the house of Omi, has awakened the silent pool. She speaks with the river, and the river speaks back. By midday, even the children sang a new playground rhyme. River girl, heart of the tide. She speaks and the water rises with pride. The sea is awake, no longer still. Arya walks, and the spirits will. But not everyone sang with joy. In the marble halls of the palace, Lady Mariah stood still as a carved mask. Her silver bangles did not jingle. Her silken wrapper, usually bright as sunlight, now looked like storm clouds had dyed it. She stared at the scroll in her hand, delivered by a trembling servant from the outer guards. Subject: Arya Omi has awakened the pool. Status: unknown. 6 guards dispatched. 2 returned. Recommendation: immediate containment. Her hands clenched into fists. How did she find the pool? Mariah hissed. That place was sealed generations ago. Behind her, Queen Omalera stepped down from her throne. Clad in a deep green robe that shimmered like fish scales, the queen's presence was powerful, silent, but commanding. Her voice, when she spoke, carried the coolness of the sea at night. She is more powerful than we believed. Mariah turned. She threatens everything we've built. If the people believe her, they'll rise. And the daughters of Omi will no longer be afraid. Queen Omalera's eyes gleamed. Then perhaps it is time we remind them why they were afraid in the first place. Mariah bowed. What shall I do, my queen? Call the old coven. The ones who remember the binding. Mariah's face stiffened. Even the ones in exile. Yes. It is time we bring them back. The sea is changing, and we must be ready. Arya must not reach the water gate. Mariah hesitated. What if she already knows about it? Then we deal with her, the old way. Back in the forest. Arya and Kibu moved swiftly through the overgrowth. After the awakening at the silent pool, they had spent the night hidden in Mama Okani's hut, but the old healer warned them they would not be safe for long. By now, the palace would know everything. They'll try to twist the story, Kibu said, helping Arya over a root. Say you used dark magic. Or that you poisoned the pool. Arya nodded. Let them say it. I'll show them the truth. But how? She stopped. By walking into the palace gates and asking to speak to Queen Omalera herself. Kibu's mouth dropped. You want to walk into the palace? You know they'll arrest you. Maybe, she said. But I was born under the river's moon. I carry the marks now. And the people have already heard the song. I just need to show them I'm not afraid. Kibu rubbed the back of his neck. You're either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both. He chuckled. Then I'll be brave and foolish with you. They reached the edge of the forest, where the road to Ilu Amadan began. Already, they could hear drums from the village. Not warning drums. Celebration drums. When they entered the village, the people paused, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. An old woman dropped her bundle of firewood and whispered, "She's the one." Arya looked at them all. I'm not here to cause fear. I'm here to tell you what I saw. They gathered around. She stood on the village's central stone, where elders told folk tales during festival nights. She spoke clearly. I went to the silent pool. I saw the daughters of Omi. They are real. They are not curses. They are not shame. They are power. We have been lied to for generations. My father knew. My grandmother knew. They were silenced. She held up the comb. This belonged to the first daughter. Her spirit walks with me now. And I will not hide. The people murmured. Some gasped. Some cried. One girl stepped forward, a thin child with wide eyes and sea marks already glowing faintly on her arms. Is it true? We don't have to go to the sea and never return. Arya kneeled beside her. One day, we will return by choice, not sacrifice. One day soon. Then, boom. A loud drumbeat shook the earth. From the palace path, armored guards marched in. Leading them was Lady Mariah. Her voice rang out like a whip. Arya Omi, by the order of the Queen, you are under arrest for witchcraft, treason, and disturbing the sacred peace. The crowd gasped. Arya stood tall. I disturbed a lie, she said. And I will not run. Lady Mariah raised her hand. Seize her. But then, another voice rang out. Touch her, and you answer to me. The crowd parted, and from the shadows stepped Mama Okani, holding a long staff adorned with river beads. I was there when the Queen's mother made the binding. I was there when the sea cried. You think your lies will hold forever? Lady Mariah's eyes narrowed. You're too old to stop us, witch. Then stop me, Mama Okani said, striking the ground with her staff. The earth cracked slightly beneath her feet. Water began to seep from the cracks. And the spirit shell on Arya's neck glowed once more. The people backed away in awe. Lady Mariah hesitated. Arya looked at her and said, Tell Queen Omalera, I will come. But not as a prisoner. As the voice of the river. Then, without waiting for chains or guards, she turned and walked up the palace path. Kibu followed. And behind them, one by one, the villagers began to hum. Not a sad song. A powerful one. A song that had not been sung in many years. The girl who speaks to the ocean walks. The sea walks with her. The palace gates loomed high, guarded by twin statues of leopard-headed warriors. They had stood there for centuries, watching over the kingdom of Ilu Amadan, eyes carved from coral, mouths closed in eternal silence. But now, their stone mouths seemed to whisper. She comes. The daughter of water walks. Arya felt the sea stirring in her blood as she passed beneath the archway. The spirit shell at her neck was warm, and each step echoed as if the floor itself remembered her grandmother's feet. Kibu walked beside her, eyes alert, hand never far from the hilt of his ceremonial blade. He was no ordinary prince now. He had chosen to walk away from comfort and privilege, and his gaze held the calm of one who had stared into the soul of the sea and not blinked. Behind them came Mama Okani, the river healer, her staff tapping softly against the marble floor. No guards stopped them. No servants ran to fetch the queen. The palace was too quiet. Where is everyone? Kibu asked, his voice low. They're watching, Mama Okani said. Just not with their eyes. They passed through long halls painted with stories, the founding of the river clans, the wars of the fire people, the time the moon fell into the ocean and rose again. All the legends were here, but none told the whole truth. Then, finally, they reached the throne of shells. The great chamber stretched wide, its ceiling a dome painted like the night sky. In the center stood the throne, carved entirely from mother-of-pearl and sunstone. It shimmered, catching every torch flame in dazzling bursts. And seated upon it was Queen Omalera. She wore a gown of seafoam silk, her crown shaped like the head of a cobra, its eyes twin sapphires. Around her neck, silver chains clinked like gentle rainfall. Her skin was flawless, her eyes deep and unreadable, like the ocean during storm season. But it was her stillness that made Arya's heart race. The queen did not blink. Did not move. She simply watched, as if she had known this moment would come for years. Arya of the House of Omi, the queen said at last, her voice clear and cold as river water. You return to the place that silenced your grandmother. I return to undo what she was forced to do, Arya replied. The queen raised one brow. Is that so? And what, child, do you know of sacrifice? Of the blood price that keeps our two worlds in balance? I know the ocean demands it, Arya said. I know that every girl in my family must turn mermaid at 16. And I know one must be given, so the others may live. Queen Omalara's jaw tightened. That pact was made before your time. Before mine. It saved us from the wrath of the seven depths. You think you can challenge that with a comb and a seashell? Arya stepped forward. I don't want to destroy the pact. I want to understand it. And I want to find another way. And if there is no other way, then I'll pay the price myself. Kibu turned to her sharply. Arya. But she held up her hand. No more running. I have to face this. The queen stood now, her robes trailing like water. You're brave. But bravery without wisdom is a tide without a moon. You will drown. Arya's eyes burned. Then let me see what drowned my ancestors. There was silence. Then, with a small motion of her hand, Queen Omalara spoke a single word. Akani. A panel of the floor behind the throne slid open with a soft grinding sound, revealing a staircase that led down into darkness. Cold air whooshed upward, smelling of salt and secrets. She wants you to go down there. Kibu whispered. She wants me to see, Arya said, stepping toward the stairs. Mama Okani grabbed her arm gently. Once you go down, you do not return the same. Arya nodded. I don't want to return the same. I want the truth. And with that, she descended into the hidden heart of the palace. Below the palace, the staircase spiraled downward, torches lighting themselves one by one as Arya passed. Carvings lined the walls, strange symbols, eyes, waves, and faces half human, half fish. The deeper she went, the more her shell necklace pulsed, as if recognizing its birthplace. At the bottom, the staircase opened into a vast chamber. It was an underground lagoon. Water shimmered in the center, so dark it looked like liquid obsidian. Hanging above it were 7 glowing orbs, blue, red, gold, green, violet, silver, and black. They pulsed gently, casting shifting patterns on the walls. And floating in the center of the water was a woman. No, not a woman. A being. She had the upper body of a woman, skin gleaming like wet sand, but from the waist down, she was all tentacle and fin. Her hair was long and flowing, made of seaweed and tiny pearls. Her eyes opened as Arya stepped forward. They were pitch black. And ancient. So, you are the new tide. Her voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Who are you? Arya asked. I am the one your grandmothers feared. The one your queen chained. I am the oldest daughter of the ocean. I am the reason your kind walks the land. Arya's throat tightened. You're the one who takes the blood price. The sea woman nodded. It is the pact. The first Omi stole from the sea, took what was not hers. To make peace, she offered one daughter every generation. I accepted. But that's not peace, Arya said. That's silence through fear. The sea woman smiled. Perhaps. But without that silence, the sea would have swallowed Ilu Amadan long ago. The waves remember. The tide forgets nothing. Arya stepped closer. Then teach me. Let me remember. Let me change the pact. For the first time, the sea woman frowned. You would offer yourself? Arya nodded. The woman raised one long, webbed finger. Then drink from the pool. If you survive, we will speak again. A pedestal rose from the water. Upon it stood a simple shell-shaped bowl, filled with a glowing liquid. Arya's hands shook as she lifted it. She looked up once, whispered her sister's name, Tammy, and drank. The taste was like salt, honey, and fire. Then everything went black. Darkness. Thick and endless, like ink poured into the sky. Arya couldn't see her hands. She couldn't feel her body. Yet, she was. Her thoughts floated in a sea of silence, drifting through shadows older than time. And then, whispers. Soft at first, like ripples on still water. She drank the memory. she wakes where the blood meets the tide. Let the trial begin. Suddenly, light cracked through the dark like lightning beneath a stormy ocean. Arya gasped, not through her mouth, but through something deeper. She was no longer in the chamber beneath the palace. She floated in a vast, glowing ocean with no surface, no bottom, just water and sky, swirling together like a living storm. And in the distance, they appeared. 7 spirits. They rose from the waves like gods, tall, fierce, beautiful, and terrible. Each shimmered with different colors, one blue like the deep, one green like seaweed, one red as coral blood. They wore long robes that swayed like water, and their hair flowed upward like flames. But it was their eyes that made Arya's heart freeze. All 7 pairs of eyes were fixed on her. One stepped forward. She had scales for skin and a crown of starfish. "Daughter of Omi," she said, her voice echoing like drums underwater, "you dare awaken the memories your bloodline buried. Do you come as thief or sacrifice?" "I come to end the pact," Arya replied, her voice trembling. "Or change it." Another spirit swirled around her, eyes glowing like twin moons. She leaned close. "You cannot change what you do not understand. Let her face the tides." With a wave of her hand, the ocean twisted, and Arya was no longer in the sea. She was standing on a dirt path, outside a tiny village. It was raining. Confused, she looked around. Thatched roofs, muddy lanes, a crying baby nearby. Then she saw a young girl running barefoot. Her skin shimmered with faint scales, just like Arya's. But the girl didn't see Arya. Because she wasn't Arya. "This is Omi the First," the deep blue spirit whispered. "Your mother's 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 mother, and the one who made the bargain." Arya watched as the young girl entered a hut. Inside, an elder woman lay weeping on a mat. "I did not know the sea had rules," the girl said, shaking. "I only wanted to borrow a little magic." The old woman pointed to a shell with jagged cracks. "You broke a sacred item. The sea wives will come for you." "But I didn't mean to." Too late. The wind howled outside. The door flew open. 3 figures entered, cloaked in seaweed and moonlight. Their feet never touched the ground. They were the sea wives, the ocean's daughters, guardians of its magic. "Omi, daughter of Bintu," the tallest said. "You have taken the comb of Kanu. That comb speaks to waves. Its power is not yours." "I was only learning," the girl begged. "Please, take it back." The sea wives looked at each other. A price must be paid. And in that moment, the pact was born. "I will give one daughter," Omi said, her face pale with fear. "Each time the tide claims another girl. I will give one." Arya's chest ached. She felt the sorrow of that moment ripple through her bones like thunder. The memory broke like a wave. Now she stood in another vision. A rocky cliff. A storm. And a girl, bound and blindfolded, crying out as the sea rose to take her. Arya screamed, but her voice made no sound here. One by one, she saw them. The daughters of Omi. All of them. Beautiful, terrified, glowing with sea marks, and all of them sacrificed to keep the ocean calm. "This," said the violet spirit, "is the truth your family buried. Do you still wish to end the pact?" Arya wiped her eyes. "Yes. But not to run from it. I want to face it. There must be another way." The spirits whispered among themselves, their voices waves of judgment and memory. Then, from the shadows behind them, came a figure Arya hadn't seen before. Her heart nearly stopped. It was Grandma Kia. But younger. Proud. Dressed in the robes of the River Council. "Child," Kia said gently, "I tried to end it too. I gave the sea everything. Even my voice. But I failed." "You didn't fail," Arya whispered. "You left me the shell. The comb. You knew someone would finish what you started." Kia smiled, fading like mist. "Then finish it. But know this, the sea only respects sacrifice. If you do not give it blood, you must give it something greater. What's greater than blood? Memory. Truth. And the voice of the one who carries both. Suddenly, the glowing lagoon returned, and Arya was back in her body, gasping for breath. The bowl shattered beside her. The sea woman stared at her from the center of the pool. You survived, she said, voice unreadable. I saw the truth, Arya said, rising to her feet, legs shaking. I won't let another girl be taken. The pact ends with me. The sea woman narrowed her eyes. Then you must become more than mermaid. You must become a keeper of the pact. One who speaks for both worlds. How? The sea woman lifted a finger, and the water trembled. You will return to the surface. But not as you were. The sea will test you. The land will turn on you. Even love will doubt you. Only then will you be worthy to rewrite the pact. And with a wave of her hand, a spiral of bubbles surrounded Arya, lifting her into the air. As the water swallowed her once more, Arya clutched her necklace and whispered into the dark. For my sister. For all the daughters. I will not fail. And the ocean watched. When Arya woke, the light in the chamber had shifted. It wasn't morning light, nor afternoon, it was a pale, eerie glow that hummed softly, like music played underwater. She sat up, gasping. Her skin felt cold, but not from the chill. It was her blood, it moved like waves now, slow and rhythmic. She touched her neck instinctively. The spirit shell hung heavy, glowing faintly. Around her, the chamber was silent. Too silent. Gone were the soft footsteps of handmaidens, the rustle of palace leaves through the carved window screens, the distant echo of drums from the training yards. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Arya swung her legs off the bed, her toes brushing the cool floor. Then she saw it. A long crack had split the marble floor beneath her bed. It pulsed with a faint blue light, like a vein leading straight into the sea. When she touched it, a whisper rose to her ears. The tide has turned, but the palace still sleeps. The door creaked open before she could stand. Kibu entered. But something about him was different. His face was drawn. His eyes, once so steady, now darted side to side. He wore his travel cloak, soaked at the hem. He carried no sword. Kibu, she whispered. He turned to her, relief blooming in his eyes. You're awake. She nodded. How long? 3 days. You drank the trial waters and vanished beneath the chamber. We searched, but the pool closed after you. I saw everything, Arya murmured. Omi. The sea wives. The pact. The daughters. Kibu came forward and took her hand, kneeling. Then you know why this has to end. I do. But there's more, he said, glancing toward the hallway. While you were gone, something happened. Arya's stomach tightened. What? The queen. She hasn't spoken to anyone. Not even the council. She sealed the royal court. And Lady Mariah, she's begun the preparations. For what? Kibu hesitated. Then, quietly, he said, a cleansing. Of all those with water blood. Arya's heart dropped. What do you mean, cleansing? She says your return has awakened an ancient curse. That the sea marked you, and others like you, as threats to the kingdom's future. She's gathering those who bear river marks or mermaid ancestry. Discreetly. But not gently. Arya stood abruptly, rage burning beneath her skin. She's going to kill them. Or worse. The people are afraid. They remember the stories. The whispers. They see your scales and think of monsters. I am what they fear, Arya said. But not because I'm a monster. Because I know the truth. Kibu looked up at her, something burning behind his eyes. Then tell them. Arya turned toward the door, heart racing. First, I need to find the queen. Too dangerous. Mariah has guards in every hallway now. I don't need to walk the halls. She reached into the small trunk at the foot of her bed and drew out the comb of Kanu, the ancient artifact her grandmother had hidden from the sea wives. Its teeth glimmered with ocean light. The moment she touched it, a current rippled through her veins. Time to wake the palace. In the heart of the queen's garden, Arya moved like a shadow. Kibu led her through the servants' paths, ancient corridors winding between the walls, built long ago by the first queens in case of siege or escape. The walls were overgrown with blue moss and roots from the sacred garden above. They emerged beneath the great moonfall tree, which stood at the center of the queen's private garden. Its silver leaves whispered like secrets. At the base of its roots was a small altar. And on the altar sat a pearl-colored bell. Arya knelt before it and rang it once. The sound rippled through the ground. Not loud, but felt like a call to forgotten bones. A breath of wind curled through the garden. The roots of the moonfall tree stirred. Then the queen's voice echoed behind them. "You've awakened the garden." Arya turned slowly. Queen Omalera stood among the trees, no guards, no attendants, only her and the shadows. But she was not alone. A long sea snake coiled around her arm, its scales iridescent, its tongue flicking with silent threat. "I know what you saw," the queen said. "The trial leaves no veil between your soul and mine. Then you know the pact is broken." The queen stepped forward. "It cannot be broken. But it can be renewed. And if you wish to stand in the place of the chosen daughters, then you must bind the sea to our throne." "What are you saying?" Kibu asked. "She wants me to become the next sea wife," Arya said softly. "To become part of the ocean's council." "Yes," the queen said. "That is the only way to stop the tide of vengeance that comes. The sea remembers. But it listens to its own. And the people. The girls Mariah plans to sacrifice." The queen's face was stone. "Collateral. The sea demands blood. If not yours, then theirs." Arya's voice rose. "Then we change the sea." "You cannot change the sea," the queen thundered. The garden wind screamed with her voice. "It was here before us, child. It will remain after. You may quiet it. You may honor it. But you will never command it." Arya stepped forward, raising the comb of Kanu, then let it speak to me. "Not you. Not Mariah. Me." The sea snake hissed. Arya combed her hair once, and the ground trembled. All around the garden, the leaves shimmered. The roots of the moonfall tree glowed blue. And in the pond beside them, figures began to rise. Girls. Spirits. The daughters of the pact. They rose from the water, hair dripping, eyes glowing, mouths open not in anger, but in song. A low, mournful chant that echoed through the garden, through the roots, through the palace. And for the first time, Queen Omalera stepped back. "What is this?" she whispered. Kibu turned to Arya, awestruck. "You've awakened the dead." "No," Arya said, tears falling freely. "I've awakened the truth." The moon rose like a wound in the sky. Its silver light spilled across the palace roof, down the spiraling towers, through the sleeping halls, until it reached the great temple where Lady Mariah had drawn her circle of salt and fire. She stood at its center, robed in sea black, eyes closed, lips moving in a language long buried beneath coral and time. Around her, nobles watched in silence, pretending it was a blessing. But it was not. It was a severing. Her voice grew louder. The salt cracked. The flames danced in defiance. Behind her, 12 chained girls, daughters of river folk, daughters of Omi, shivered beneath the ceremonial net of obsidian shell. "Tonight," Mariah declared, "we cleanse the line." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The nobles did not dare stop her, not after the queen's silence, not after the Sea Council's omen. But in the crowd, one voice rose. "No," said Arya. She stepped forward, slow but sure, wearing a gown of seaweed silk. The comb of Kanu shone in her hand. The spirit shell hung against her chest, humming with ancestral power. And her feet, bare, glowing, left no sound upon the temple floor. Mariah's smile faltered. You dare. I dare to end this, Arya said, her voice steady. You speak of cleansing, but all you offer is fear. These girls, my sisters, are not curses. They are keepers. Carriers of a legacy you tried to burn. Mariah raised her hand, and the fire roared. But before she could speak the final word of the spell, Arya held up the comb and sang. It was not a song of battle. It was a lullaby. The kind sung by mothers of Omi to their newborns. The kind sung to daughters when the waves called. The girls behind Mariah lifted their heads. Their eyes, once dimmed by chains, began to glow. The salt circle cracked. Then, the sea answered. A long crack split the marble beneath them. Water surged up, not violent, not raging. Gentle. Steady. Like a mother coming to collect her daughters. The flames hissed out. Mariah screamed. No. You cannot. But it was too late. From the water rose a figure wrapped in seafoam and moonlight. Queen Emily of the Deep, Arya's grandmother. The first to wield the comb of Kanu. Her voice carried centuries of sorrow and strength. This ends tonight, Mariah. Mariah turned to run, but Kibu stepped in her path. He wore no crown, but he bore the shell marks across his arms now, shining like ocean tattoos. You betrayed us. You betrayed yourself. But you will not harm another daughter of Omi again. Mariah screamed once more, and the sea took her. No violence. Just a long sigh as her body turned to mist and her cries faded into the water. The morning after. At sunrise, the people gathered in the great courtyard. Arya stood before them, no longer hidden. The scales on her legs shimmered. Her voice carried over the hush like a bell. There will be no more sacrifices. Murmurs. Gasps. One child cheered. Arya continued. The pact is over. The sea no longer demands a daughter's life. It asks only that we remember. That we protect the balance. That we honor what flows through our blood. Queen Omalera, pale and silent, stepped beside her. She laid down her crown, not in shame, but in peace. She is your voice now, the queen said. She is your wave. The people bowed. And the tide turned. Deep beneath the waves. In the ruins of the sea coven, the echoes of Mariah's screams still whispered. But something else stirred. A shadow in the water. Watching. Waiting. Not Mariah. Older. Hungrier. The blood has not all been spilled, it said. The girl still breathes. The day broke with a stillness Arya had never known. For the first time in years, the ocean seemed to be holding its breath. The winds had stopped. The birds no longer sang. Even the sky, usually so full of color at dawn, hung in a muted gray. Arya stood at the edge of the palace balcony, looking out across the vast stretch of ocean that had once been her kingdom's greatest fear, and its greatest mystery. Now, it was her home. Her inheritance. Yet, something lingered. A shadow in the water. Kibu joined her, his face drawn but steady. The sea is restless, he said softly, echoing her thoughts. The sky has changed. Something old is coming. Arya closed her eyes. She could feel it. The energy beneath the water, powerful, dark, ancient. It pulsed like the beat of a heart. The sea had always been a part of her, a part of all the daughters of Omi. It was their mother, their protector. But it also held something more, something that could not be tamed. What do we do now? She asked, turning to face him. Kibu reached for her hand, his grip warm. We wait. We've done all we can. The kingdom is free of Mariah's spell. The daughters are no longer bound by sacrifice. But the sea has no patience, Arya murmured. And I have only just begun to understand it. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the palace. A distant roar of waves crashing against the cliff sounded louder than it had ever been. But it wasn't the usual sound of the ocean's tides, it was different. There was a rhythm to it now. A chant. "Arya," Kibu said urgently, looking out toward the horizon. "Something is coming." Without another word, they ran together toward the shore, the sea crashing fiercely against the rocks below. The last daughter. At the base of the cliffs, a dense fog had rolled in from the ocean. Arya and Kibu stepped cautiously through the mist, their feet sinking into the wet sand. The air was thick, almost oppressive. Then, the ground trembled. A deep, resonant rumble came from beneath the sea, shaking the earth with the force of an ancient beast stirring in its slumber. The water began to rise, not in waves, but in a massive wall, crashing forward as though the sea itself was coming to reclaim the land. And then, through the mist, there she appeared. A figure, towering and majestic, rising from the depths. She was a woman, but not of flesh. Her body was made of scales and shadows, her hair flowing like a cloud of dark tendrils, eyes glowing with the eerie light of the deepest ocean. It was the last daughter, the spirit of the ocean itself, the first and the oldest of the sea wives. Arya froze, heart racing. The last daughter's voice echoed across the shore, low and thunderous. "You dared to take my birthright." "No," Arya said, stepping forward. "I took nothing. I gave nothing. I only sought to end the cycle of blood. You were not born to rule with fear." "You know nothing," the last daughter said. "You are but a child of the sea. I am its mother. Its keeper. And you have awakened me." Arya's eyes glinted with determination. "And now I will put you to rest." The spirit of the ocean raised one long, pale arm, and the sea rose with it, twisting into a vortex of water and light. It spiraled above them like a storm, ready to crush everything in its path. Kibu gripped Arya's hand. "We can't fight this, Arya. She's older than time itself." "I don't need to fight her," Arya replied, pulling the comb of Kanu from her waist. "I need to remember her." With one swift movement, Arya held the comb to the sky, the teeth sparkling in the moonlight. The sea stilled. The last daughter's face twisted in fury. "You dare." But Arya's voice was steady as she spoke the ancient words. "Mother of the deep, hear me now. Your daughters are no longer bound by chains. No longer bound by blood. The waves no longer seek to destroy what they love. This is your time to rest." The wind howled around them, and the sea surged, but Arya did not flinch. She stepped into the water, the tide rising to meet her. "You cannot," the last daughter whispered, her form flickering like a fading star. "I am the last daughter," Arya said softly, her words filled with sorrow and strength. "And I am the one who will free you." The water rose in one final crashing wave, surging toward Arya. But as it reached her, it parted like a curtain. The last daughter, in all her might and fury, stood before her, her body unraveling into tendrils of light. With a final cry, the ocean spirit dissolved into the wind, her form disappearing into the sky. The sea fell silent. Arya stood alone on the shore, the comb glowing softly in her hand. The water lapped gently against her feet, no longer a storm, but a calm. Behind her, Kibu stepped forward, his eyes wide with awe. You did it." Arya nodded, her gaze distant. "I did not defeat her. I simply remembered what she was, what we all are. Children of the sea. But not slaves." The fog began to lift, and the stars above them shone brighter than ever before. The ocean, now still, shimmered with peace. But the journey was not over. Arya looked toward the horizon, where the first light of dawn broke across the water. The kingdom was safe. The pact had been broken. The daughters would no longer be sacrifices. The sea had given its blessing, but Arya knew there was much still to be done. And there was much still to be learned. "You're the queen now," Kibu said, taking her hand. Arya turned to him, a small smile crossing her face. "Not yet. But one day, perhaps." They walked back together, hand in hand, as the first rays of the sun touched the sea. And the ocean, ever deep, ever mysterious, continued to whisper. In the years that followed, Arya became a legend. Not just as the last daughter of the Omi line, but as the first to truly understand the balance between the land and the sea. The daughters of Omi no longer lived in fear. They were taught the ways of the waves, the history of their people, and how to protect the waters without being consumed by them. As the new queen of the land, Arya ruled with wisdom, honor, and love, always with the ocean's whisper in her heart. And though peace had been restored, Arya never forgot the shadow beneath the waves, nor the spirits that still called her name. The sea was a vast and endless mystery, and it would always be with her.